applications, right? So we're just starting now. So we're talking about Sage applications. So quite a lot of us would have been hearing Sage. So the thing is, what is this Sage that we are talking about, right? So now Sage is a software company that was founded by David Goodman, Formula Well, and of course, a couple of other people, But then the idea is that it's actually a software, that you can use, and it's actually a software, that you can use in managing. But then, this Sage, right, has several applications across several regions, right? The Sage applications that are supported in Nigeria or in Africa, as a whole, is quite, different, right? To a couple of other Sage softwares that you use in places like the United Kingdom and other regions, right? But then we still have a couple of universal Sage systems like say 300 ERP. Then we have Sage S3 also. That is very, very much universal. But then Sage is just a company name, that has several softwares, in its purview, right? Just like you have for Intuit. Intuit is a company that uh, that deploys, or that creates a software called QuickBooks, right? So you could have a couple of other QuickBooks software. You have QuickBooks Online, you have QuickBooks, desktop, and and they go on and on, like that. So that is Sage. When you hear Sage, Sage is not just a software. Sage is a software company. But then when we are talking about Sage software, we have a couple of other softwares that are client, under Sage as a company, right? So which Sage Business Cloud accounting software is one of it. Okay, so let's now move into this Sage Business Cloud accounting software that we are talking about. Sage Business Cloud accounting software, right, is one of the leading cloud solutions in Africa majorly, right? So it is a cloud solution, right? And it's specifically or especially built for accountant business owners. Then of course, when we say lovers of accounting profession, so it could be business students, at large. But then what is the benefit of using Sage Business Cloud accounting software? So if anybody asks you that, okay, you said you've used Sage Business Cloud accounting software, or you've been trained on it, what can you say about it? The very utmost or primary thing is it's a cloud software. So when you hear a software tagged as a cloud software or as a cloud solution, it simply means that that software is actually accessible anywhere, right? So it simply means this Sage Business Cloud accounting, you don't have to install it, you don't have to have it installed on your system or on your phone. It's simply accessed, via a URL. We'll be walking us through that, as we proceed. But then it's a cloud software, so anybody could access it. If you move from Nigeria to the UK tomorrow, you can always work with your application. So all you just need is an internet enabled device. Now this is very much necessary these days because just due to the advent of the coronavirus pandemic, companies with most of these companies, actually, or most of these workers needed to work from home, right? But then it doesn't make sense if you are using a desktop application, like a fully desktop applications like say 200 Evolution, that you don't even have cloud infrastructure for. Let's say it's just being resident in your office. So simply means that particular solution, like say 200 Evolution, in first instance, would only be accessible within your office premise. So if you are working from home, it makes it difficult, right? So, but then this Sage Business Cloud account software is a cloud solution, right? Is a cloud solution that it simply means you can access it anywhere, anytime, right? Just using your mobile phone or your computer system. So I just talked about it being accessible, which is the second point. But then it's equally affordable. So it's way, way cheaper, right? With respect to, or when you compare it with other Sage systems. So if you compare it with systems like say 300, right, ERP or Sage S3 ERP, the costs are very, 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 those softwares, their costs are on the high side. And why are they like that? We'll look at, why they are like that in this next section. So before we go into the practical proper, right, of today's session, right, we I want to walk us through what we call accounting softwares and ERP solutions, ERP systems. So before now, you must have been hearing that, oh, are you versatile and can you work with an accounting software, an accounting solution? So the answer is always, yes or no, right? One moment, please. One moment, sorry. So the answer is always yes or no. But then when you hear ERP solutions, accounting systems, so you need to, you ask yourself, what's the difference between these two? What is the difference between these two? So we want to bring our attention to it, right? Or the major difference between an accounting software and an ERP solution. Okay, so sorry, I hope I'm still audible. I hope I'm still audible. So we want to look at what accounting software is. This is actually one of the take home from attending this session, right? The difference between accounting softwares and ERP solutions. So the question is, what is an accounting software and what is an ERP, application? They have similarities, but then there are little differences. So when you are out there and you are talking about, let's see, okay, thank you, Victor. Okay, please, I need uh, uh, someone else to equally acknowledge if I'm being audible clearly, right? But thank you. Okay, so while with that, uh, so we want to look at the differences between accounting softwares and ERP solutions. Okay, so accounting softwares are those systems. So I'm still waiting for one more person to acknowledge if I'm audible. Okay, thank you, Christopher. Okay, thank you, Amarachi. I think a couple of other people are equally having this this software glitch. I think it's coming from some of the network operators like MTN and so I don't know. Okay, so just a moment. Okay, I hope we have you know more people. Okay, yeah, I think we all are good over here. Okay. Okay. I guess some of us are having, challenges on the group chat. So sorry that I had to just pause. The information reaching me is there are a couple of challenges. So let's see. Let's see. We are looking at should we use Google Meet? Hold on. Okay. Okay. So we just want to be sure that we all, are not missing anything here. I think couple of okay. Just a minute. So if okay, okay. I think no, the screen is not blank actually. Okay, so let's just continue. I think we are good to go. We are good to go from a couple of the comments we are getting from the group chat. Okay, so basically the difference between an accounting software and an ERP solution, right? So that's where we are. So an accounting software actually and it's these are systems that helps you manage your basic uh accounting or financial data of the system or accounting activities as the case may be, right? What do I mean by this? If your business is concerned about the bookkeeping aspect of the business, raising of invoices, generating customer receipts, raising general ledger journals, raising cash or bank related transactions within the system. Fine, an accounting system will be fine for you. But then when we are talking about an ERP solution, basically, right, an ERP solution encompasses all departments of a business or a company. Remember, an accounting software only deals with activities that are relating to accounting or finance department alone, right? Just like I've mentioned, I talked about invoices, raising receipts, and the likes. And it does little of inventory too, right? But then an ERP solution encompasses all other departments. It simply means if you have a solution that accommodates the HR and payroll department, that equally accommodates, the inventory department fully, accommodates procurement department, the fixed assets, department within a company, and logistics and the likes. Then you call such a system an ERP system. So it simply means when it's the end of the month, the HR person goes into the system, run payroll, related processes, and it's seamless at the end of the day, right? So whatsoever it is that the HR is doing, translates, into payroll journals for uh, the accounting or finance department, right? And if there's anything that is being done, probably from inventory, you see the store team or inventory team receive some set of inventory items, right? And automatically, those items that they've received within the system, will translate to financial data, right? So you call such a system ERP systems, right? They are bigger, right? They are bigger, they manage voluminous, transactions or activities, right? But then an accounting software would only do, the basic bookkeeping of a business, right? So ERP is called enterprise resource planning, right? So it helps to manage all, activities, of that company, be it from inventory to HR and payroll, to inventory, to procurement, to logistics, and to credit control and all of these other, departments. So that's one of the major differences between an accounting software and ERP solutions. So another difference between the two solutions is that an accounting software, is very, very low in terms of cost. So the cost is always affordable, right? But then ERP system, which is enterprise resource planning, right, is very, very expensive and is being used by majorly, know, medium and large scale businesses, right? So that's another point we should note. An accounting software equally accommodates finance department operations and little of inventory. I talked about that. Then, of course, ERP system synergizes all department activities. I talked about that. Accounting software, can be very, very limited in scope, right? The things you get to do, on it are limited because remember, it has to do with the finance department, alone, right? But then an ERP system is quite robust and accommodates several, activities within a company. So there are a couple of systems that falls under accounting software, and there are a couple of systems that falls under enterprise resource planning. But then one thing you should be able to note at the end of the day is this: when you look at a software, and if the software is only doing basic, bookkeeping in terms of recording expenses, in terms of just generating invoices and the likes, then you can call those set of system, an accounting software. But then if you have a system, if you have an application, that is very, very robust, that manages inventory, you have the store team uses it, then you have the supply chain team, they use it, you have logistics, department, they use it, then the same system, the HR personnel would go into the system, and do their payroll related or payroll related processes, talking about creating new employees, terminating, employees that must have left, the system, or you talk about having an employee self-service platform, right? So you call those set of system an ERP solution, enterprise resource planning. So, like I said, examples of accounting systems, right? As examples of accounting systems, you have QuickBooks. So your QuickBooks is actually a typical example of an accounting system, right? Your Sage Business Cloud Accounting, Sage 50C, is being tagged as an accounting system. They are not ERP systems, right? But then when you talk about ERP solutions, enterprise resource planning solution out there, right? You can talk about Sage 200 Evolution. Sage 200 Evolution is actually tagged as a mini ERP. So it sits in between an accounting system and a full ERP system. Then you equally have an application called Sage 300 ERP, right? You have Sage S3, you have SAP, some people call it SAP, but we call it SAP. Then you have Microsoft, Dynamics. These are applications that has been used, by very, very robust and big organizations. So I hope, with this, you've been able to see a major difference when you're out there, when you are being asked that have you heard of an ERP system before? So I want to believe you should be able to substantiate, the differences between an ERP system and an accounting software. Just to take that again, an accounting software will do, your basic bookkeeping and will do activities that are related to the accounting or finance department majorly. You want to track your receivable, your payables, you want to track, you want to look at your income statement, you want to look at, your statement of financial position, which is equally balance sheet, right? So you want to look at a couple of those reports. An accounting system will do that for you effortlessly. But when your set of activities in a company is now being complex, right? So then we'll now be talking about probably recommending or you using, an ERP system which is tagged as enterprise, resource planning. So let me just be sure that we all are together before I move ahead. Okay. So yes, GSOV, yes, you can actually log in from another device to see on the bigger screen, which is fine. So yes, of course, an ERP, will do exactly anything whatsoever that an accounting software will do. Emmanuel asked that question. Thank you for that question. So an ERP solution, is just like a father. It's a father to a son. The accounting software is just the son. It's a tiny fraction of what a full ERP system would do. So yes, an ERP system will do, to a large extent, all those things an accounting software will do. In fact, they would even do them better. That's why they are very, very robust and very, very expensive. So you call them enterprise resource planning system. So it's very, very robust and all. So that's one typical thing that we need to note about these differences, because you hear people out there, if you say you've attended a session on accounting systems, then you should be able to differentiate between these two. All right, so if there are still further questions, then I can still take. We'll be looking quickly into how can we configure our own company, which is Sage Business Cloud Accounting software. So if there are any other question, you can always drop them and I would attend to them accordingly, right? If there are none, we'll just proceed, of course, from here. All right. So now we are looking at setting up your company on Sage Business Cloud Accounting. But before we go into setting up our own company, right? The question is, how do we access our accounting software? Now we talked about Sage Business Cloud Accounting software, Sage Business Cloud Accounting software that is quite different from Peachtree or Sage 50C. This is a much more advanced system in terms of what's available out there. So how can we? The first thing is accessing the software itself, right? So now to access the application itself, right, we'll be navigating through the URL. All you need to do is to go through your browser. It could be from your phone, it could be from your system, your laptop or your desktop computer. All you just need to do is to connect to an internet connection, right? So, and now use your browser. It could be Safari if you are using your phone, Safari if you are using your phone, right? It could be Google Chrome, right? If you your phone well, and if you are using your system, you could, go through it using Edge or using Chrome, right? So now you need to launch. Let me zoom my screen a bit so you can see. So all you need to do is from your browser, go to accounting.sage1.co.za, right? So accounting.sage1.co.za. So that is where you access the software from. So immediately it takes you to a landing page, which is the screen where you get to log in your credentials, on, right? So quite a number of us have been able to do this, from our email instruction, right? We've been able to create our own company, and for some of us that are yet to create this, it's still no problem. You can always do that, during the break, during break within this session, or you can always do that also after today's session in preparation for tomorrow's class. So if you sign up, right, all you just need to do is to enter your email address and your password. Then you click on login, right? So you remember, it's a cloud application. It simply means you can log in with, if you have a system in the office, you can log in on that system, do a couple of practice. Then if you have another system at home, it's not necessary that you need to move your system around. So you can even log in from your phone, go to accounting.sage1.co.za, then just log in, input your username and password, then you are in, right? Same thing if you have another device at home, you can always use that, and you start doing your transactions, generating your report, or checking out a couple of things, or practicing yourself. So that is how seamless and how sweet the application is, right? So I will be logging in now with my own, of course, username that we've created, right? So uh, now, one moment. Okay. So I'm logging in with my own credentials, username and password. Then you click on login. So now the system is logging me in, and yes, I am, in now. So this is Sage Business Cloud, accounting, software. But then you see that you have, your company settings. You need not to worry. The system is not, is just, trying uh, to show us how we can easily set up, this application. But then what we'll be doing is we'll be walking us through the typical accounting processes with using a software, right? In line with, couple of exercises that we've shared with us. We have a couple of exercises that we'll be doing together to make it much more practical. We are not only explaining, how the software works or how accounting or ERP system works in general, right? We are equally going to practice by creating new records, entering transactions, looking at how transactions report. When you do this on an accounting system, what you are supposed to expect, and the related terminologies that we need to be used to. So when you go out there and you say you've attended, an accounting software training, then you need to be able to say a couple of things. That is why this class is very, very important, and that is why even we as facilitators would always want you to drop questions, should you have any. And okay, I have a question here. So that's why we would always encourage you to drop questions, because this is where we can always clear your doubt, and equally provide professional advice on any view that you might have, right? So this is a class exercise that we'll be working with, aside from just running us through the application, right? And we've shared with us the software manual as well, and these are a couple of also activities that will be going to within the system. So now there's a question here saying, what's the difference between Sage Business Cloud Accounting and Peachtree Accounting? Okay, so the typical answer is this. Both are accounting systems, but then, and both are being owned by Sage. Before now, Peachtree, Peachtree software is being owned by Peachtree as a company before. But then along the line, I can't clearly remember the year now, the exact year, but then Sage actually bought over Peachtree. So that is why when you see some softwares out there, they say Peachtree, I think it's if not 2013 or so. So if not 2013, that Sage bought over Peachtree. So when you see out there that people say, oh, you see some softwares, they call it Sage 50, but then the Sage 50 is Peachtree. So the idea is that Sage bought over, Peachtree, at some point, but then Sage enhanced, the product, and the product today developed into what we call, Sage Pastel Partner, but then it's now being called Sage 50C now, So if you see the earliest version of those Sage 50 that you might be familiar with, maybe Peachtree 2010, Peachtree 2012, those are actually when they were still Peachtree solutions. But then ever since Sage bought them over, right, Sage made so many enhancements. That is why you won't see any software out there, being called Peachtree. Those softwares you hear them called Peachtree today, these are, old systems. But then Sage themselves, when you look at those editions for those Peachtree, what you'll be saying is 2010, 2011, and so on. So, but then they are, accounting systems. And another difference is Peachtree is typically a desktop application, right? But then Sage Business Cloud is a cloud solution. So Peachtree, if you have it installed on the system, if you are not with that system, you cannot work, on your company data, and that's how it works. But then with Sage Business Cloud Accounting, even when you are not with your typical system, you can always log in, with any system, whatsoever, and you'll be working fine. That is just to answer that question then, right? So let's go back into the training proper. Okay, so now we'll be looking at setting up a company. But before we create, before we set up our company proper within Sage, Business Cloud Accounting, let's walk us through, this system to make navigation much more easier for us. Now, this is Sage Business Cloud Accounting. It has what we call modules, or you can call them, tabs. So in here, at the top here are what we call the modules. You have home, quick view, customers, suppliers module. You have items module. You have banking, accountants area, reports, company, and you have administration, right? So now, individual module, has their own functionality, and that is how accounting software works at large. So every accounting system has what we call modules. So these modules, accommodates some level of activities that you can carry out with that module. But then they have, relationship with each other. For instance, in some softwares, you would have a module called general ledger, right? In some softwares, the module is being called accounts. In some softwares, a module will be called ledger accounting. But these are just, different names, right? But then they have, they work alike. So, and another thing is, all accounting systems, to a large extent, work alike, right? And why do I say so? You would see that, as we progress, in the training course. Okay, so now let me just introduce us to what these modules, what they do, so that by that you would have a sense by the time we start practicalizing, we would have a sense of what and what this module does and all. Okay, so we have the home module. So the home module basically houses what we call the dashboard, right? So the system has what we call a dashboard, and the dashboard, okay, let me set up retention period. One moment. So the dashboard basically gives us, okay. So the dashboard basically gives us, I will come back here. I just set up what we call retention period. Okay, reason. I will come back here. Okay. So the dashboard basically gives us quick insights, of how the company is performing, right? Of how the company is performing, uh, you know, financial data wise, because we don't have much data in here now, most of these dashboards are not populating, but as we progress, we'll come back to it, right? So the home module has what we call the dashboard, so the system gives you a quick insight on general, overview of how your business or your company, is performing. The essence of using an accounting software is to ensure that your company's data, those financial data you are imputing, you get meaningful insight, meaningful reports that you will be able to interpret at the end of the day. And it just avoid you so many manual works. So the dashboard functionality, you have it here. You have the general dashboard, you have the customer dashboard, which is a dashboard specifically for customers. So if you want to have an overview on how your customers have been performing, receivable wise, you can always navigate through the customer dashboard. You have suppliers dashboard, that is, for your payables, for your vendors, how you are owing, which vendors have you paid, and all that. That's what that does. Then you have item dashboard, you have financial dashboard, you have my workspace. My workspace is just like a shortcut. Is is more like a desktop, where you have desktop shortcuts where you can always navigate to. Should you want to create invoices, let's say you want to record expenses and the likes, and of course you have my workspace, you have of course VAT rate, change guide, and the likes. But then the home module basically houses what we call the dashboard. If you want to, easily see, a quick insight of how the business or how the company is performing in line with the data you've imputed. That's what the home, module does, right? But then you equally have what we call quick view, right? The quick view button does, it equally gives you insights, but then it works like what you have in the home, module too. But the only difference is that, in under the home module here, we are looking at general, insight at large. So if I come to customer dashboard, the system will give me, summary of how you can see customers balances, customers report, top customers by sales. They will start populating by the time we start imputing balances now, right? So it will give you a general overview with respect to your customers, right? But then what you have under quick view, if I go to my customer section under quick view, what I will have is that, the system will give you a detailed insight. This is a summary. What you have under home is always a summary. But what we have under quick view, is always detailed. So if you now want to see a particular customer, a particular customer is performing with respect to how much he or she is owing, or how much it is that the company has paid, we can always, or what are the set of invoices that we've sent to them, how many invoices are outstanding and how much are they, right? Or, which vendors are we owing, which set of vendors are we owing. We can actually see that from the quick view for the suppliers, right? Then also items, how are items performing, which set of items, both physical and service, how are they performing within this period? Are we selling more of product A or product B, or are we rendering more of service A or service B? You understand? But then what you have on that quick view, it still gives you an insight, but then it's detailed insight. So the difference between home and quick view is home only gives you the summary, right? The summary overview. By the time we start imputing data now, it gets much more interesting. But then the quick view, gives us detailed insight. Let me before I proceed further, right? There's an area that we'll be looking at in depthly, which I also want us to pay attention to, and it's something you would you would actually appreciate with respect to attending the training session, and which is when we get to the aspect called the general ledger. The most important thing about any accounting software, any accounting system or ERP system, is what we tag as the general ledger. But then we'll be diving into it shortly, what a general ledger is, and we'll be practicalizing, we'll be carrying out practicals on it. And of course, there's so much to learn, in that end. But before we get there, I'm just trying to bring, to just introduce us into the software proper, so that by the time we start doing a couple of activities, then it doesn't get strange to us. Okay, cool. So now we have the customer module, right? So the customer module basically is a module that houses, customer related informations, transactions, or reports. So should you want to create your customers, right, into the system, should you want to do transactions with respect to customers, be it invoices, be it quotations, sales order invoices, credit notes, and we'll be looking at these are, such documents that we'll be looking at, where are they applicable, when can we do this, when can we do that, and these are, should you even go for interview questions, these are things that, would be able to convince, or you will be able to use, to convince whosoever it is that you are conversating with, to be sure that you've actually used or you've attended, an accounting software training, right? So these are what we'll be looking at extensively, right? But then remember, the customer module is basically, responsible for, recording any activity at all, be it creating a customer or editing customers' information, to transactions, and also to reports, right? To report. So that's what the customer module does at large, right? The suppliers module, it's just, an opposite of customers module. So it's responsible for doing suppliers related, transactions or information, right? So, but then the items module is responsible for inventory related, and your inventory could be either physical or service. We'll be looking at that also in depthly as we proceed, right? So, and also inventory related activities, for example, inventory adjustments, as you can have it, what will warrant inventory adjustment, how do you do inventory adjustment or item adjustment within the system. These are a couple of things we'll be looking at shortly, right? So, and another module we have, we have the banking module. Now, the banking module, is used, to record, transactions that affect our cash or bank, petty expenses. We could even use it to recognize customer payment, customer suppliers payment, and the likes, within the system, right? And we equally use it to do bank reconciliation. So you hear, most times where people would ask, you could be asked in an interview, how do you do bank reconciliation? So we'll let you. These are also what some of those things we'll be looking at, as we proceed also. Just like I said, how do we do bank reconciliation? What is bank reconciliation? What is the best practice, in doing bank reconciliation? How do you do it on an accounting software? We would equally look at that, as we proceed. So then, of course, the system has what we call, the account module, right? The account module basically is responsible, the account module is also called the general ledger module in this software, right? And it is responsible, we call it the art of any software. So it is responsible in you creating your ledger chart of accounts, and this is an area that is very, very important. It is very, very important, right? So we'll be looking at how do we chart an account. What is a chart of account? When we hear, oh, this is a ledger account. How does it work, on, an accounting system or on an ERP system? We'll be looking at that. But then, should you want to create a ledger account, or should you want to maintain your ledger account, as the case may be, you get to do that under the account module, right? But then, moving on, accountant area. The accountant area module, helps us in doing couple of activities, accounting related activities, such as processing journal entries, right? You can also do VAT returns, from this accountant area, and we can do what we call recurring journal entries. This will be showing us, what this entails. But the two primary things you get to do under accountant area is basically processing journal entries and equally going doing what we call VAT returns and remittance, right? Then of course we have the report module. So the report module houses all other reports that we have in all these other modules, right? All the reports we have under customers, suppliers, everything is still, available in our reports module. So it's just should let's say you don't want to generate, you want to generate your suppliers related report, and you don't want to generate that through your suppliers module, then you can always go to the report mode. So the report still encompasses, right, all other reports, that you have in the system, from financial statements, to a couple of other reports, right? So then we have the company module and we have administration. So the company module, should you want to do, major configuration, like setting up your company, which will be working ourselves through now, is being done from the company module. So here you can always manage your company information yourself, because the idea of the training is we want to set up our systems ourselves, right? Then we would equally do transactions and we would equally generate meaningful reports together ourselves. So this is not a training where someone had already set up something and you're just being asked to just create customers, create suppliers, do a couple of invoices and you are done. No, we'll work ourselves through setting it up together, which we'll be doing, which I'll be working us through, right? Then we'll do transactions, right? Then we'll equally generate reports and translate these reports ourselves, right? To be able to get meaningful information or meaningful set of information, basically, for our business or our company, right? Then lastly, we have the administration module. So the administration module is just for the admin, right? To manage users and to equally assign user rights. One thing you will notice that is peculiar about accounting system or ERP solutions is that, just like I said, you wonder an ERP solution that allows for more than two or more departments, to use a software. What would differentiate, what this person is doing from what this person is having access to do? What will literally differentiate that is what we call, access, rights, and permission. In some systems, they call it control user access, right? So it simply means even with this application here now that we are training with, you can actually assign rights. I can have a junior colleague and say, oh, my junior colleague should only have access to, creating invoices or doing petty cash, related expenses or petty cash vouchers, right? So it could just be like that. So, and where do I get to do that? I get to do that under, control user access. And if I want to create additional users, I go to manage users, right? To create additional users. And if I want to give them rights, what they have access to do or what they can see, then I can do that from control user access. So basically, that is just a beautiful introduction into the application, right? Into the application. You know, just like I said, these are what we call modules. But then this area, is what we call the work area. Where we have dashboard now. This customer dashboard area is what we call the work area. So it simply means anything we are navigating to through the module, will be seen, or we'll get to do activities on them, on the work area. Right? Okay. So I hope there are no questions. Okay. Uh, Yes, we will. Okay, so I hope I am still very much audible. Okay, so please, if you have questions for me or if you want to call my attention into anything, please, you can actually drop them via chat, right? And we'll be you will be attending to them. Okay, so we want to proceed into creating our company, setting up our companies ourselves, right? Because before we can say that we want to be able to create, master files. We want to be able to do transactions. Then there is need to set up our own company, right? And that is where we are going to now. So we want to set up our own company, right? And from there, we'll move to general ledger accounts, right? Which, will be very, very robust and very, very interactive, right? And after which we are done with that, then we'll proceed into, creating ledger accounts. You will be creating customers. How do we create customers? What are those things that we need to note in any system, be it on QuickBooks, be it on any other Sage applications? What are those things that we need to note when creating customers, when creating ledger accounts, when creating suppliers? Because one thing you should note is this, right? Softwares, most especially business management softwares, or accounting softwares or ERP systems, as anyone you might want to call it, right? Is that systems are all about garbage in, garbage out. So it is whatsoever it is that you input into the system, it's the same set of information, that must have been transformed anyways, is what you get, as your end product. So one thing is very, very critical. How do we input these data into the system, right? How do we input these data into the system? What are those things that we need to be aware of? What are those things that we need to know, right? And these are what we'll be looking at, in the training session. Okay, right? Okay. So, and we'll be proceeding to that, as we speak. So let's see. Uh, yes, Christopher asked a question. Yes, the accounting system, yes, Sage Business Cloud Accounting allows for administrator, then of course other users. Yes. So as an admin can have full access. You can do anything it is that you want, right? But then you can then add, other users. And with this, you'll be able to set, individual user access, to them. So you can say, oh, user A would only have access to do this customer related transaction, and another person is only in charge of inventory or petty cash voucher. Do you understand? So, and that is, you can always do that between manage users and control user access. So it's only an administrator that will be seeing the administration module or the administration tab, as the case may be. All right. So now let's set up our company together, right? To set up our company, what we need to do is to go to the company tab, right? Or the company module, right? Now from here, I'm just zooming my screen. So from the company module, you see we have what we call change company settings, right? What we are doing is we are making provision for different default settings. Mind you, a very good software, if you have an organization, that's using a software, and they quite enjoy, the application, then it simply means a consultant must have set up the company properly. Now we want to work us to how can we also ourselves set up our company properly. Remember, a poorly company, a poorly set up company, will lead to poor reports. The report won't even be meaningful at the end of the day, right? But then let's set up our company together. You understand? And let's ensure that we set them up properly. So, what are those things that we need to note? What are the best practices out there when it comes to setting up a company? Even in relation to Sage Business Cloud Accounting Software. So this is what we want to look at now, right? And please, when you have any questions, uh, uh, do not, be too bothered to ask. Please ask the questions, right? And that is why we are here. Okay. So company settings. Now you would notice one thing. Let me zoom my screen here. So under the company settings, we have several sections. We have company details, we have general settings, we have VAT settings, and so on, right? We have branding. We won't be looking at all of this, but we'll be looking at those ones that are very, very important to us, right? Those ones that are very, very important and peculiar to us as we proceed, right? And this is what we intend to look at now. So we have several sections here. Under company details, we have subsections. It's more like components. There are several components that are made up company details. So we have company details itself, we have additional company information, then we have customer zone. But then, we'll be looking at those ones that are primarily important, so as to allow us, have a smooth, transaction processing and a smooth report at the end of the day. So I'll just take it from company details, right? Now, before you use any application, it is expected that you set up your company details properly, right? And in the company details, you have the company name tab, we have telephone, and we have address, address information in here, right? So the need for this, and the company name could be any company in this case, for the purpose of practice. I could call it Aziz Nigerian Limited. It is not necessary that it will be a company name for where you are working now. But if you create it as a company name for where you are working now, it's still fine, right? So remember, the company name we have here is the company name we provided at the point of signing up for the software, right? But then we can always modify. So, like for me now, I have here in my company name, I have here Droidedge Training Limited. It's just a company that I manufactured, myself. Ordinarily, the firm's name is Droidedge Consulting, right? But then I purposely created a company name called Droidedge Training Limited for the purpose of this training practice, right? So, and be it tomorrow in life scenario, in business life scenario, you have instances where businesses equally change, their company name. And when such happens, right, you don't need to panic. Most accounting systems or most ERP systems would allow you modify your company name or address at any day and at any time you want to, right? So it simply means if I want to change this from Droided Training Limited, I am allowed to change it, right? I can always modify it, should I want, right? And mind you, it is the name you have here, the company name you have here, that will appear on your source document. When you raise customers received, when you generate reports, it is this company name that will be showing on such documents, right? That is why you need to ensure that this company name you have here, if you want to use ABC Nigeria Limited, ensure that it's being spelled correctly, because that is what you would have when you are raising purchase orders, when you are raising supplier invoices, customer quotes, customers credit notes, petty cash vouchers within the system, right? So now I am able to modify my company information, or create my company information under the company details section in the company settings, right? Okay. So now I will move to my email is still correct, fine. Contact name, mobile telephone number, you can always input, right? Because of time, I'll be moving fast, right? So, but then postal address, very, very important, right? Because the system, uh, the system would always recognize these addresses on your source document, just like I said, right? So the address for the purpose of training, you could equally fix in any address, that you want, right? But then I'll be fixing our company address, which is 17 Allen Avenue, right? Of course, Ikeja, Lagos, right? Yours could be, it's not necessary that you make use of my own address by the time you want to practice from your hand, right? You can always use your own, address, right? So I haven't done that of Allen Avenue, of Aulo, Ikeja, Lagos. Okay, Ikeja, Lagos, fine. Then physical address, I can just copy this, sorry, I can just copy this to this end too, right? Okay, postal code should you have, you can always impute, right? If you do this, you can do this, save, then proceed to the next phase, or you can equally just set up all information relating to your company, then you save it, when you are done, right? The save is the action button in here. Remember, if I input anything here and I did not save, right? If I did not click on save and I just move away from, the screen, it simply means nothing will be saved, at the end of the day, right? So statutory information, company tax number, that's your TIN number. If you have and you want to input, it's fine. But then it's not compulsory, right? It's not compulsory. If you have it and you want to input, fine, you can, but it's not compulsory. Registered name, there are instances where companies, would have uh, uh, trading name and registered name. It's very much possible. So the system has provision for you to have your trading name. Your trading name will come under your company name, but then your registered name could now be your registered name with CAC. A typical example of that, some of us might be surprised with what I have just said, but a typical example of that, is, if I'm not mistaken, Mobile. Yeah. This popular mobile filling station, their trading name is Mobile, but then the registered name now, I guess, is Double One. Yes, if I'm not mistaken there. So there are instances, and in some instances, it could be the same. It could be the same. For instance, Droidedge Consulting is the registered name, and Droidedge Consulting is still the trading name. But there are instances in some firms, right, where the registered name with CAC, could differ from the trading name, right? But in such instance, you just need to register. If it's the same, just input, the same name, like I have here. I can just copy and paste in here, right? Droidedge Training Limited. And registration number, if you have it, you can input. But then these informations are not compulsory, right? So here you have, is it a limited liability company or partnership? Either of it, you could also choose. These are just you keeping information that are related to your company, right? So the beauty of using a software is equally that you'll be able to, you know, save informations same informations that relate to your company, right? Okay, so all right, so having done that, the city, yes, city, Lagos province, country, Nigeria. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting up my company, right? But for me to be able to set up my company, I need to first set up my company details information, right? My company details. So the business, the company name, the registered address, and the phone number and the likes. It is very, very, good you do that, right? So I haven't done that. I want to move to customer zone, right? So now the system has one of a very good feature, right, called customer zone. And how does customer zone works? So this is one of the beautiful feature about Sage Business Cloud Accounting. Now, if you are being asked out there, that one of the beautiful features that Sage Business Cloud Accounting has that differs, from other Sage software, from other softwares like QuickBooks and the likes, is that it has what we call customer zone, right? And what is customer zone all about? Customer zone is a platform where your customers can actually log on to see their their transactions related information. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you raise an invoice to a customer and you generated customer receipt, any transaction it is that you've captured in a customer's name. You know that the customer can actually see those transactions or see their customer statements themselves wherever it is that they are, by this platform called customer zone, right? So if we have Droidedge, right, and let's say Aziz is a customer to Droidedge, right? So when Droidedge raises invoices and quotations and the likes to Aziz, right? So Aziz, from his own convenience, right, can actually gain access to this customer statement. It's just like the same way we today log on to our banking app, right? We log into our banking app and we see in our account statement and couple of transactions that it is that we've done with respect to our bank account, right? Same thing is applicable with customer zone, right? All you just need to do is there's a URL you just need to share with your customer, and once they log on to that URL, they'll be able to generate their statement and see their invoices, those that are due, and those that are still not due, couple of payment that it is that they've paid. So that's what customer zone is all about, right? But you have the laws of enabling it or disabling it. So it's always good if you enabled it. And by this checkbox here, it simply means we've enabled customer zone, right? And the second thing here is that when we enable customer zone, it simply means we want our customers to be able to gain access, to their own reports, to their own customer statements, so that at the end of the day, we can always be on the same page. So there's no point in a customer calling us to say, please, send me a statement from your end. We want to reconcile, they can, as you post, they can always see it, right? So that's what customer zone is all about. Then when you've activated customer zone, just like by checking the checkbox here, so the system is equally asking, do you want the customers to only see their invoices and quotes that you raised in their name only, or you want them to see their invoices same as their account history? So this second option is actually the best. So when you are setting up your own company, make sure you select this second option, which is invoices and account history, right? So the thing is that the customers will be able to generate to see their invoices, the invoices that you've raised, and they'll be able to see the ones that they've settled and the ones that are still outstanding. And the account history is they being able to generate their customer statement. So they can generate a customer statement for a whole year, for 2 years, or for a month, for some couple of days, and it goes on and on. But then when you are setting up your own company, ensure that you select invoices and account history. So how customer zone works, we'll look at that as we proceed. But then just to understand the concept that customer zone, is a platform that allows your customers to be able to log on into, the application, and for them to see, it's just like a platform for them to see, their transactions, the invoices that are due, their statements and the likes, right? And that's what customer zone is all about. So I want to move from company details and I want to move to general settings because it's getting much more interesting. So just trying to see if okay, no question for me yet. Okay. So I'll be moving into general settings. And one of the critical things that we want to look at in general settings is our financial year. So there is something called financial year when we are dealing with softwares, right? We are factoring in the fact that in this section we have, accountants and we have non-accountants. So we have some of us that do not have accounting background. So that is why, we won't be making use of, much jargon. We'll be making use of, layman's language to be able so that, everybody can understand, right? So, but then when you are working with a software, with an accounting software for that matter, that helps you manage your business, right? There is always what we call financial year, or you can equally call it accounting period. How does it work in systems, right? And how will it be of importance, to you, being a user, right? So the thing is this: we have what we call financial year, and the financial year, of course, in an accounting term, is at when you are entering transactions, and the essence of entering transactions into a software, is for you to gain to generate meaningful reports. And when you are generating reports, you want to know, how much, is the business or is the company making as profit, be it gross, be it net. How much is the company, spending on expenses, fueling expenses, these expenses? How much are we even getting revenue? How much are our customers even owing us? But then when generating these informations, right, we'll be generating these informations, in line with what we call the financial year end. So it simply means that every accounting information you are entering, is attributable to a financial year, right? Take for instance, we are in 2022 now. Remember, a financial year, right, is it's comprises of 12, 12 accounting months, right? But then we are in 2022. Some companies, their financial year is always from January to December. So it simply means when you are generating reports for 2021, say you want to know your profit for 2021, simply means you would say that you are generating that report for 2021 financial year. Now, your financial year could now be, it could be from January to December, right? It could be from February, to January. It ranges, from different companies. So to some company, it is whatsoever it is that they are starting, whatsoever period it is that they are starting, the business, and whichever month that you are starting from, you would always ensure that you count 12 months, and 12 months are intact. So that is why accounting financial years in companies are not is not uniform. Some have it January to December. So it simply means when it's December 2022, then they will be able to know their total profit for the year. And some companies, it's from February 2022 and it will end in January 2023, right? So some companies, if it's starting in March 2022, simply means it will end in February 2023. Simply means when you are starting, you will count 12 months, right? And that is how it works. So that is what we call financial year. And how do we now manage financial year, right? You manage financial years by now, remember, account said business cloud accounting allows for unlimited financial years. So what do I mean by that? You can have 10 years information, 15 years information on said business cloud accounting, right? It is that flexible. But some applications won't give you that. Talk about Peachtree. Peachtree would only allow for 2 accounting periods, or you call it financial year. So it simply means when you do a transaction of 2021 and 2022, the moment you are moving to 2023, right, you have to purge transactions for 2021, which is the earliest year, because the system will not accommodate for more than 2 financial years. That is, if you are being asked that, what do you know about Sage 50? What you call Sage 50, be it Sage 50C or Peachtree. That is one thing that you need to note, right? So it's just back to the fact that Sage Business Cloud, accounting software allows for more than 2 accounting, or financial years, right? So now, how do we create a new financial year should we want to within Sage Business Cloud accounting, right? So we can always do that from this company settings here, where we have financial years, right? We have 2021 and 2022 presently. It simply means if we fail to create 2023 as a financial year, when that time comes, we won't be able to post into 2023. So it simply means, let's assume, right, that our company period is starting from January to December. It is fine, right? And let's say we are in December already. We want to make provision for 2023 transaction. How do we create the financial year? We just do that by clicking on this add button, and you will see I now have a new financial year from January to December 2023, right? So it simply means I can now do transactions with respect to 2023. But if I fail to create 2023 as a financial year, then I won't be able to post transactions or generate reports, when 2023 comes, right? And you can always create, just like I said, you can see, I can create unlimited. This is 2026. I want to create 2027. I will create, you see, just like we have here. We have 2021 to 2027 already. And now that I don't have any transactions in those other years, I can choose to just close it, right? And that is how it works. So another question that could arise is, let's even say, what if our financial year is not from January to December? How can we make provision for it in, say, business cloud accounting? Then it's pretty simple, right? So here, let's say our financial year is from January to December. Is from February to January. So I can say our financial year is starting in February, and when it starts in February, right, it will end in January, right, 2022. So, and if we do that, right, and I click on this plus button, so the system would follow, of course, that trend, right? The system would follow that trend. And when you keep clicking on plus, and if it's from April to March, it's still the same thing. But one thing you should notice is this: when you hear them talk about financial year, it's just a year that is typical to report generation. You want to generate a report for 2022, a report for 2021, a report for 2020. That 2020 they are talking about is a financial year. But then the financial year, accommodate for 12 months. Please note that. It is expected that if you had worked with an accounting system, right, you should know that, right? So let me change this back, to my default January to December, right, and create, my January to December 2022, of course, as okay, all right. Okay. So that would be it, basically on financial year. Okay, so one moment. Okay, be proceeding shortly. Go back one step to financial year, right? Then I want to create this January to December. Sorry, this is coming from here. This should be 12, 2021. Yeah, this is fine now. Then this should be 12 at once. So it's from January to December, right? This is fine now. Okay. So another thing we have here under financial year, we're moving fast, is lockdown date. So what you use lockdown date to do basically is just to lock an open period, right? Just to lock an open period. What do I mean by that? So there are some businesses that they do open their accounting, their software on a monthly basis. So when they are done with January related transaction and reports, they will close January, period, and they would, proceed to posting February transactions. Should you want to close your period, can always use lockdown date. So for instance, if I set this lockdown date to be January 31st, 2021, right? It simply means the system would not allow transactions. Any user make any modification or do any transaction into the system, as at 31st of January 2021, right? So it simply means that means I've closed January transaction. So this is important and is a good thing to note as an accounting professional or as a business management person. So when you have other users posting into a system, it's always good you close and open your period, your financial period, constantly. So in some companies, and it varies, some companies they close their books daily. So when you are closing your books daily, when you are done for the day transaction, come here, come and set your lockdown date. And some company it is monthly. So it simply means when they are done, now I've closed January transaction, right, 2021. When we are done with February, I will just need to come here and change this date to February. It simply means I've closed February transactions too. So and that is how lockdown dates works, right? But I won't be bugging us much. We just have to move very fast now. Okay. Okay. Uh yes. Moving on, moving on. Okay. So please keep dropping the questions that you might have for me. So as we proceed, I'll be answering them, of course. So now we just move to the next one. The next one is called rounding. Rounding, basically we don't have to round simply because we deal with two what is it called? We deal with naira and kobo. So and we don't just deal with whole numbers. So in terms of amount, so we don't need to round, right? Sorry about that. Okay, so we don't need to round, right? But then rounding, no, you don't have much things to do in rounding. But then another important thing is regional settings, right? So in regional settings setup, right, what do we need to do here? This is equally important as to for the application, right? In regional settings, we have what we call quantity decimal places. Now, the nature of items that we deal with here determines what we have, under quantity decimal places, right? So if we deal with if we deal with items that we sell in pieces in whole, let's say we are selling phones. Of course, we won't sell phones in decimal places. We would either be selling one piece, two pieces, three quantities, and the likes. You don't sell, they are not like 1.5, 1.8. No, you don't do that, right? So that will be strictly zero, right? But then if what you deal with is what you sell is in kgs, you measure them, then it is that will be a good leverage to modify what you have in quantity decimal places. If you deal with maybe you fill gas and it's like 3.75 kg, 2.8 kg, then it simply means your quantity decimal place could be 2. And there are some items that due to their nature, their decimal places could be 4. So but for the purpose of the training, it's 0, right? Value decimal place for the purpose of the training is 2. Why? Simply because we want to deal with naira and kobo. So our kobo is in 2 decimal place form, right? So our currency symbol is N, which signifies naira, right? Say tomorrow, if the federal government agrees to say, oh, we are no longer spending naira, then you don't need to panic. Your system will still work. All you just need to do is to come to regional settings and you modify the currency symbol, and that's it. Right? And of course, the date format is good. Okay, nothing much to do here, in regional settings, customer and supplier settings. Okay, the only thing we need to do here is we don't want to display inactive customers and suppliers, when processing. So every other thing is intact here from the default. We only want to exclude uh, we want to exclude e-display inactive customers when we are processing, but we still want to generate report on them. The reason for this, I would explain to us as we proceed. Right? Item settings, yes, we don't want to. So also we don't want to display inactive item for selection. That's just the only thing also here. Right? Uh, uh, Then what else? Standing balance, nothing much is okay. Personal information, yes, this is equally important. So now the system is asking for what we call retention period under personal information. The system would mandate you to fill in something here. Now, the purpose of the retention period is just you keeping information with respect to the system. Now, your said business cloud accounting software wants to know that in line with regulation in your country, how many financial year data of personal information, would you or is your regulators, permitting you to keep. But that doesn't mean now I'm selecting 10 years, which is the maximum here. But that doesn't mean you would only that the system would allow you to just save information for 10 years alone. No. Remember, I said the system allows for unlimited financial year. But then this is just like a form of feedback for Sage, to say how many years would you like to retain personal information? That doesn't translate to your business financial data anyways. So when you set 10 years, then you are expected to include a reason. And your reason in this case, you could just put statutory. So just select 10 years and select statutory. Remember, if you fail to fill in anything here on retention period under personal information, the system would not allow you save, your defaults, right? That you must have, your setup that you must have done in here, right? So here I will click on save, although I'm still working, right? So then we just look at the remaining 2 levels of setup, right? Before we now proceed to, this the one of the most beautiful aspects, of the training, which is general ledger accounts, right? So now, to just finalize this, now let's set up VAT. VAT, is very, very important too. VAT is value added tax, and for some of us that are aware what VAT is, fine. For some of us that are not fully aware what VAT entails, I would indulge us to read further. We can always solve the internet on it, but as little as I can tell you because of time now, is VAT is called value added tax. And it's just like a consumption tax that is levied on goods and services, by the federal government. So it is expected that any goods or any service that you render, except for a couple of items that the federal government has exempted, right? And a couple of them are, say, basic food items. When you are selling rice, raw beans, and all those ones that have not been processed. So you don't charge VAT on them. Maybe medical, items, drugs and the likes, they are exempted. Baby products and a couple of those things are exempted. But aside from couple of items that the federal government has outlined, so it is expected that all business, all companies should always charge VAT, right, on their goods or services. So now this system allows you to cater for your VAT, VAT administration. So when you are buying, an item, the system will recognize VAT input. When you are selling an item, the system will recognize VAT output. And at the end of a certain period, you can always generate your VAT report. Those VAT that is due for remittance. VAT that you charge on customers, you are expected, to remit it to federal government. That's how it works, basically. But let's set up our VAT, within the system, right? Because VAT now, businesses differ, right? Some businesses are vatable in nature, right? They're permitted to charge VAT. And when you charge VAT, you either have the option of saying your VAT system that you run is invoice based, is payment based, or it's a no VAT. Now, when you are charging VAT, you either charge VAT or you don't charge VAT. Now, when you charge VAT, the only available option that we have in Nigeria, right, is invoice based. Mind you, VAT would be charged, or VAT will be recognized, when you buy and when you sell. You know, that is how it works, basically. So we don't practice payment-based VAT as we speak. So payment-based VAT is saying, oh, you're only charging VAT as at when it's been paid for, or you would only remit VAT when a customer pays for that VAT that you charge. But that's not what we want here. But a couple of countries like the UAE, they do that, right? But for Nigeria, when you charge VAT, always note, you can be asked in an interview or anywhere that what we deal with here is invoice-based VAT, right? So when you raise an invoice, it's expected that VAT will be charged, on it. So, but then if you don't charge VAT, and you can be in a situation where you don't charge VAT, it's possible, right? Let's say you're an hospital, you run an hospital. So basically, hospital related service or products are not expected to be vatable. You understand? And and it goes on and on like that. So, but then for the purpose of the training, we'll be doing our training based on VAT, based. And if you have your VAT number, you can input in here. It's fine, right? Your VAT reporting frequency is 1. It simply means every month you are expected to be, charging VAT. So now I can just set this to be for last year. My last VAT date is last year, and this also will be last year. So we'll see how this works. But basically, what we want to look at here is to set our VAT system to invoice based, and also to ensure that our VAT percentage is well set up. Now, before now, we were running 5% VAT, and I think in 2020 the federal government came up with 7.5% VAT, on goods and services. So say tomorrow federal government comes again and say, oh, VAT should go back to 6% or VAT should go back to 11%. It's very easy. All you just need to do is to come to your company setup, go to VAT settings, and modify this your VAT percentage here, right? So now it's 7.5, which is correct due to Nigerians legislation, right? So that's what we need to note here, and we can always save, from this end. So zero rate exempt, yes, would only be selected, as a VAT type if a service we are trying to render, is not vatable at that point. But we'll see how this works, anyways. So lastly, yeah, the only thing we have here that is left is how do you set your company logo? You would want your company logo to appear on your source document, your invoices, your purchase orders, and the likes, right? And the way you can always set your company logo by going to branding. Under branding section, you see company logo, and for company logo, you can choose, your logo file, right? You can always choose your logo file, And your logo file, can always choose your logo file here. So let me select my logo file. And when you do that, you can always select your position to say maybe you want it to be on top left or top right on your invoices, and you can preview it. You can see I've selected my logo file, and which is this Droidedge Consulting logo here, right? I only previewed, and that's all. So every other thing is fine. We are good to go. All you just need to do is to click on save and close. So what we have done is to basically set up our default with respect to our company. So we've set up the company's information quickly, quickly we've set up our company information. And remember I said, always ensure that you set up your company information properly, right? So it is meaningful data that has been set would always lead to meaningful uh would always lead to meaningful reports. Okay, so let me quickly go to a couple of our questions. Okay, Emmanuel asks that if you've logged down a month, how can you correct entries? Yes, when you log down a period and you want to correct your entry, he is referring to the lockdown dates that we have under the company setup here. Yes, it simply means you can always go back if you have the right. You can always go back to unlock that period. So when you unlock that period, you can always pass your adjustments, or adjust your entries, within that period. And when you are done, you can go back to lock it again. Do you understand? So that is how it works basically. So now, yes, the software, not just after the training, the software, we sent a mail along on how you need to sign up for the software. But if you're having any challenge, doing that, you can always send us, a DM on our WhatsApp. We'll be willing to guide you too. So, okay, I haven't said that because the idea is we also will be setting up our company, right? I mean, the participants, and as we proceed. Okay, so let's see. Do I still have other questions here? Okay, cool. I think we are good for now. Okay, please confirm if I'm still audible, if you can still see my screen, because we are getting to the part where we don't want to miss. Right? Please confirm you can still see my screen. You can confirm this via the Q&A chat if you can still see my screen clearly, right? Because we are moving into the general ledger account, which is also being called the chart of accounts. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you, Endowment. Thank you, Agatha. Uh, thank you, Kemi. All right. Thank you. Okay, so now we are moving into uh, the part which gets much more interesting, which is the general ledger account. So for this general ledger account, after the general ledger account, we just go on a short break, just to allow us stretch our hands and legs, take some water and the likes, right? So, but this general ledger account for it to be much more meaningful, for it to make more sense, we've created a slide that will just walk us through, right, in line with the software, so that we are not just restricting this general ledger account to say business cloud accounting software alone, but then to all other systems, how it works on QuickBooks, how it works on Sage 50C, how it works on Sage Evolution, Microsoft Dynamics, Sage S3, and the likes, right? And you know, the thing is, what is a general ledger, right? For some of us that are accountants and for some of us that are non-accountants, please let's pay optimum attention here. So, what is a general ledger, right? A general ledger basically, is mostly referred to as the art, of an accounting software. Why do we say this? It is simply because, its configuration, the way you configure your general ledger, right, determines how the reporting of an entity is being structured. Now, be it statutorily or be it, management reporting wise, right? Now, what do we mean by this? Now, you see, the way a setup, for for a manufacturing company will be done will be quite different from how, an aviation company, or a pharmaceutical, or let me say, or a construction company will be done, right? What do I mean by this? You know, as a good, software person, an accountant or a business person that is versatile with software, it is expected that when you see a ledger account, a company's chart of account, basically, you should be able to say that, oh, this is the industry that this company belongs. What do I mean? Let's imagine I'm seeing a ledger account, a revenue ledger account called, let's say I'm seeing a revenue ledger account called air tickets, like air transports, like plane tickets, ticket sales, and I'm seeing on their expense line, they are all equally having, maybe an expense ledger or cost of sales ledger saying, aircraft maintenance, or you are seeing another ledger called aircraft repairs and spare parts. Do you understand? When you see stores like this on a ledger account, you can easily say, oh, this is an aviation company, right? When you see another chart of account saying, oh, you are seeing a couple of raw materials, you are seeing work in progress, you are seeing finished goods, you can say, oh, this is a manufacturing company. Or let me come back to our own consulting firm, you are seeing a ledger, some set of ledger accounts, and you are seeing revenue for training, revenue for consulting services. Though you can literally say that, oh, revenue from Sage accounting training, revenue from QuickBooks. You say, oh, this firm, it's a software consulting firm. So the way an organization charts, their accounts, it determines how they would report, both statutorily. That is when regulators are having access to your report, be it FIRS and the likes, or the report you generate for management, internal decision wise, right? But then there are several components that a general ledger comprises of, and one of it is chart of accounts. Then you have budget, then you have cash book. But then let's now look at the chart of account holistically. When you hear someone say chart of account, note, chart of account is applicable in all softwares. It's applicable in non-accounting softwares and in all ERP solutions. So you can't say that you used an ERP solution or a set of accounting softwares, and you don't know what a chart of account is. Then it's actually questionable, right? But then, so what is a chart of account? A chart of account is a listing, right, of the names of accounts, or you call it ledgers, that a company has identified and made available for reporting transactions in its general ledger, right? What this simply means is this, right? And it goes further to say a company has the flexibility to tailor its chart of account to best suit its needs, including adding accounts as needed, right? Now, the chart of account is a pool, that contains the list of your individual ledger accounts, right? And what does this individual ledger account means? Remember, for any transaction or any activity you record, be it expenses, be it any money that you get, as an inflow, or anything you spent money on, translate into a ledger entry, right? If you spend money to buy stationaries, for instance, right? That stationaries that you've bought, at the end of the day, you would want to generate a report to say, we want to see all the money we spent on stationaries. We want to see all the money we spent on vehicle repairs. We want to see all the money we've made from, our activities. Do you understand? So what you need to do is you need to create a ledger account to recognize or to record those set of activities. Now, I can now create a ledger account called stationaries expenses. So if I create a ledger account called stationaries expenses, of course, is an expense, right? So anytime you want to buy Bible, anytime you want to buy books, anytime you want to buy anything stationary wise, it simply means when I'm posting into my software, I would select a ledger account called stationaries expenses. Anytime you are buying fuel, be it for generator sets or be it for your vehicles. You can have a ledger account called fueling expense. Individual ledger account that I'm talking about, would eventually make up what you call your chart of account. So everything in addition, in totality, is what you call as your chart of account. So you have individual accounts, but then a chart is like a pool for it. All right. And we said a company has the flexibility to tailor its chart of account to how it suits, its best, right? A typical example is just that example of the aviation sector I talked about. I talked about the ledger account. Imagine you having, aircraft, spare parts expense, you having aircraft or plane repairs, or you having ticket sales and the likes, right? You would have seen, so you can tailor it the way you want it to be. I can say, oh, this what is supposed to be an administrative expense should be a direct cost, which is a cost of sales. Do you understand? So it works like that. But remember, anything at all you do, on an accounting system, majorly when you hit that button post, or you hit that button save, has an accounting entry referred to it. And that accounting entry is going to what you call the ledger account. So the reason why it is important is this: if you have an expense, I have a ledger account called stationary expense, and if I create it wrongly as a revenue, as a sales, it simply means my report will be so wrong. That is why it is the art. Without the heart, nothing will function, right? When the heart stop beating, then it's as good as someone is dead, right? So your accounting software in this case, relies heavily on your chart of account. When you look at your report and it's not giving you what you want, go back to your account, go back to your ledger account and see the chart in the mapping. Is it properly mapped? If it's not properly mapped, then your report won't, give you your true position. So now it goes for us to say a chart of account should give anyone who is looking at it a rough idea of the nature of your business by listing all the accounts involved in your company's day-to-day operations, which is what I've explained. Right? When you raise invoices, when you raise payments, when you do all the likes, it has to do with your day-to-day operations. And at the end of the day, there should be a ledger account that should be responsible, for one or two set of activities. So that when you generate your report, you can see the amount you spent on these expenses. You can see the amount you've generated from these, activities that you're engaging that you're engaging as a firm, and you can see some level of information as to finance cost, other income, and the likes, right? And the properties of a chart of account or of a ledger account includes GL code, general ledger code, description, which is the account description, or and what we call GL category, and which in some system they call it ledger type or account type, right? So let me go further now. Now, when you now talk about, we talked about general ledger account. General ledger account is the same thing as ledger account. It's the same thing as ledger. It's the same thing as account, right? But then when you add everything together, it becomes a chart of account. So when you are now talking about an account, you need to note also that an account is further, classified into two. There can only be two sets of accounts as we speak now, right? So you would only have income statement account and balance sheet account in any software at all, right? So in any software, okay, okay, I hope I'm audible, please. I hope I'm audible. Please confirm if I'm audible, please. Just to be sure that we all are on the same page and we don't miss any parts. Please, you can help confirm via chat if I am audible. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I got that. Okay, so when we talk about, we are talking about, ledger, when you have, they're talking about general ledger account or GL account or anything whatsoever. It's been classified into two currently. We have income statement and you have balance sheet, of course. But you need to note this, that income statement accounts are accounts that only appear on the income statement report, right? So as to get a profit for the period, profit or loss for the period. One thing you should note is this: balances in income statement ledgers does not go over into another financial year. I would explain that, right? What I mean by that. Now, on the other end, we have what we call balance sheet account. So balance sheet account appears on statement of financial position, right? And you need to know that balances in these ledgers would always roll over to another period. Now, let me now break it down further. Now, income statement ledger, balance sheet, ledger. Income statement ledger would only appear on your income statement. So those are the set of ledgers that you would always use to ascertain whether you've made profit or you've made loss, for a particular period or for a particular account or financial year, right? Those are your revenue accounts, your expenses accounts, your direct cost, which is your cost of sales account, and the like, other income, couple of those accounts like that. Any ledger accounts that you see at all, any ledger account that you see on your income statement, if you generate your statement of profit or loss, and you are seeing that ledger, simply that ledger is an income statement ledger. And these balances, the balance, let's say you spent a total of 300,000 on foiling in a particular accounting year. When you get to December or the last day of that accounting year, let's say our accounting period is from January to December, and in this case 2022. By the time we get to January 1st, 2023, that's 300,000 balance that is standing as 300 that is standing as at 31st of July, 31st of December 2021. By the time we move to January 1st, 2023, sorry. Or let me take that part again. That set of balance, which is 300,000 that we are seeing in our income statement as at 31st of December 2022. By the time we move to January 1st, 2023, right, you will be seeing that ledger that what you have in that balance will be zero, because it's not expected to roll over. It doesn't accumulate with respect to balances. By the time you finish that financial year and you are opening a new financial period, it will be zero, right? But then when you are making, if what you are looking at is a balance sheet account, so, a balance sheet account are those accounts that you will see, on your statement of financial position. They include your inventory, your cash and cash at hand and cash at bank, your receivable, your payable, and the likes, right? Those ones would always roll over. Their balances would always roll over. So you could be asked when you are talking about ledger accounts, always let them know that ledger accounts could either be of income statement nature or balance sheet nature, right? And the difference is that the balances in income statement would not roll over, and balances in balance sheet would always roll over. A typical or should I say a relatable example to that is this: your balance sheet, your bank balances. When, let's say, as at the end of December 2022, you have a total of 1 million in your bank account. You won't say because you are done with that financial year and you are moving to a new financial year, your bank will now tell you that your balance as at January 1st, 2023 is now zero. No. It will always be accumulative in nature. It will always accumulate. So a typical example of a typical scenario like that, makes it qualify as a balance sheet account, right? So always note that there are differences. When you just talk about ledger account, know that it could either be income statement and it could be balance sheet, right? And also, we talked about the features of general ledger account. We said normally a general ledger account would only the characteristics will be to have a ledger code in some cases. It will always have what we call ledger description, and it will always have what we call account category, right? What do we mean by this? Now, when this is a typical example of a chart of accounts, right? How it looks like. So you could be asked to say, oh, you said you've worked with an accounting software. Can you chart an account? Can you list out what a chart of account is? Or can you list out some set of chart of accounts, for us to see? This is a typical example of what a chart of account looks like. In most cases, has what we have GL code. It has description, and it has what we call account category, right? But one thing you should notice is this: we have a provision where we call type, right? So we have those accounts that balance sheet nature, they will go in line together, and those ones that are income statement would equally go in line, together. Now, we gave you tips on how you can create ledger account, or you can create chart of account, as the case may be. But one thing you should note is this: when you want to create a ledger account, right? First thing you need to, ascertain is this. You need to have a code, right? A ledger code, and your ledger code could be from, one to it could be from 10,000 to 90 something thousand, or to 9,000, as the case may be, right? It could be from 1,000 to 9,000, depending on the range, the number that you want to, assign to it. In my own example, right, I have here my ledger code is 5 digits, right? So it simply means it's from 10,000 to 99,999, right? So, but then for me to chart an account, I looked at it critically and I said, firstly, you need to divide your classes of accounts into balance sheet and income statements. And you need to say that, oh, from this 1 till 9,000 here, right? Which set of account do I want to assign to balance sheet, and which set of account do I want to assign to income statement? You can see that for my balance sheet, I said it should be from 1,000, from 10,000 to 30,000, right? Which you would see. And I said, oh, my income statement, of course, from 4,000, to 99,000, right? And for each of, my balance type, which is balance sheet and income statement, I further have what you call account category. Now, this is relatable to those that are accountants majorly, right? You can now classify your account to say, okay, from this balance sheet, we would always have non-current assets, trade receivable, cash and cash equivalent, and the likes, right? But, if for any ledger account you are creating, right, you need to ascertain, does it fall under balance sheet? Fine, if it falls under balance sheet. Which of the account category does it fall into? I can say, okay, for any account category that is, PPE in nature, property, plant, and equipment in nature, or is fixed asset in nature, right? I can always say, oh, I would assign them to 10,000, as their code. For those ones code from 12,000. Those that are bank or cash, I could start their code from 13,000, like you have here. Those ones that have to do with liabilities, creditors, payables. I want to start it from 20,000, right? And those ones that other non-current liabilities, I can still further go with 20,000. Share capital, and the likes, I want to go with 30,000, right? This is just a tip. But then it now goes on and on to say, now I've created a ledger account here called motor vehicle cost. Should I want to create additional ledger account, I've created for cost and accumulated depreciation. Let's now assume that I want to create another ledger account to accommodate computer equipment. So it simply means, and remember, your chart of account should be uniform. If I want to create computer and equipment, I should not just jump and just assign any code to it. I need to come here to say, okay, it falls under balance sheet, but my computer equipment, falls under non-current asset, which is fixed assets. And I will say, oh, my next code, this is, 10,010. So my next code here will be 10,000 and 20 if I'm working in multiples or additions of 10, right? So if I want to create a new ledger code, a new ledger account, for what is it called, for computer equipment, the ledger code will be, 10,020. If I want to do accumulated depreciation for it, it will be 10,030, right? And it goes on and on and on and on, right? If I want to create for my cash and cash equivalent now for GT Bank and Petty Cash, let's say we open another bank account tomorrow, we open Zenith Bank, right? Remember, GT Bank is 13,000, Petty Cash is 13,010. Then the next one should be 13,020, because if I'm adding it in additions of 10, right? So if I want to create for Zenith Bank, I would say 13,020. If I want to create for Access Bank, I would say 13,030. It's like that, and it should be uniform. That is how good that we know that, yes, you've been using, you know, uh, an accounting software, or you've worked with an ERP system before. And that is basically, how, it works, right? Okay. So in here, we'll be sharing the slide with you. Then as it goes, we have tips on how, you can create a ledger account. It's just similar to, what I just, explained. But one thing you should note is this: the ledger account or the chart of account again is the most important, and is being referred to as, the art of the accounting system, simply because, if you should wrongly map or wrongly create a ledger account, then it simply means, at the end of the day, your reports would be wrong, right? Now, always remember, accounting systems is all about garbage in, garbage out. Is what you are able to feed the system with, is what you'll be able to get, as a form of report, right? So that is what a chart of account is all about, right? So on this note, we'll be creating, set of ledgers together, but so that we don't get tired out, let's grant, at least a 10 minutes break. I think a 10 minutes break will be fine. Then once we come back, we'll just speed up the part of creating, ledger account, and creating, customers, items, and couple of other things, right? So if you have any questions in the meantime, you can always still drop it for me. But then let's go on a short break, right? And this is 2:30 p.m. So we should be back by 2. It is expected that we'll be back by 2:40. So let's just have a little break. And okay. So yes. So from 2:30. So let's come back by 2:40. So just to make sure we can just, you know move around a bit so we don't get tired out. Uh, all right. And if you have any questions, any question for me at all, you can always, of course, drop them, and they will be attended to. Okay. Thank you. So I'm still very much around, right? Okay. So going for a little break. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back for that short break. I think welcome back. Sorry, the break had to be short because of time. Okay. I hope we all are back. Okay. Hello. Okay. So we'll be continuing our class. But please confirm if you can hear me clearly. Please confirm if you can hear me clearly. Okay, so let's okay. So network is trying to come up. Okay. So I hope you can see my screen now. Okay. So yeah. So now we want to practicalize, our ledger chart of account on Sage, Business Cloud Accounting, right? How do we maintain our ledger account on this software? Remember, we are treating it just after setting up our company, which is creating, modifying our company information from the company name to the address and the likes, right? And so now the next thing when you are setting up, a system is you now set up your ledger account. Remember, I said something, on the ledger account. I said in some cases, some system has what we call GL codes. Remember, not all systems have what we call GL code, right, in their ledger account. But you just need to note, right, that most systems do. And it is expected that when you want to talk about what a chart of account is, you should talk about that code aspect of it, right? So now this would to be able to create our ledger account, we need to move to our account module. Remember, I stated at the early part of this training that the module that is responsible, that serves as our general ledger for our chart of account, is the account module, right? And for you to be able to do anything, right, on the account module, or to view a list of our ledger account, you need to go to account, then you have list. Under list, you have what we call list of accounts, right? Now, for list of accounts, as you can see, the system already comes with some predefined, ledger accounts, right? The system already comes with some predefined ledger accounts, right? Some, if you don't want them, you might choose to delete them for those that have actions, right? And for some, you can always modify them, you can always enhance them as the case may be, right? So here we have list of accounts, and always note, Sage Business Cloud Accounting has, three kinds of account that you can add. You can add a typical ledger account, or you can add an account called item account. Then you can equally add an account that is, bank or cash in nature, right? The way they operate, but they are similar, right? They are quite similar. So now we'll be working in line with our, class exercise, right? With our class exercise that we've shared with us, right? And you see that the first set of activities on our class exercise is to create general ledger, accounts and bank accounts. So we have a couple of accounts that we'll be creating, right? But before we create, let me explain this part. Now, add an account is the conventional chart of account, that you would want to add, right? But then, this, if you're adding any account that has to do with, fixed asset in nature, expense in nature, revenue in nature, and the likes, you can always select add an account. But if you want to add an account that you want to be able to assign or to link to inventory items, then you need to select item account. What are those kind of accounts you want to link to inventory items? Take, for instance, if I want my reporting to be such that when I sell a particular item, I want the sales, to report in, when I sell that item to my customer, I want the sale to report to a direct ledger account, that I want to use specifically for that item. Then such an account is called an item account in Sage Business Cloud, right? But if the account I want to create is a bank account in nature, a cash account, then the ledger account I'll be creating will be, a bank account. It will be a bank or card account within the system, right? But as we proceed with this, you understand them much more better, right? Now, what we want to do now is to create a ledger account. One thing you should note again is this: Sage Business Cloud Accounting does not accommodate, a coding system. Its ledger account strictly accommodates description and account categories, right? Which is what you have here: name, category, account description, and the likes. But it doesn't work with codes. You have a couple of other softwares that does that too, right? That doesn't work with codes, right? So, but for this doesn't work with code. So that is why you see that our class exercise only has account name and account description, right? So how do we add this account? So we need to come here, add an account. We need to come to add an account and click on that and add account, right? But another thing, sorry, I just remembered also now. Before you add a new record into the system, there is one thing fundamentally that you should always carry out. And this is what separates a user that has a knowledge in accounting systems, and from those users that are manual accountants. Before you create a new record into the system, always search. You just never can tell. The record might exist before and you might not know, right? I can have a customer name, Aziz Adeumi in the system, But then when I wanted to create, I know the customers are doing me Aziz. So it's always good you search. You can search either by Aziz, either by Adeomi, so that at the end of the day, you would be able to know if such record exists. You know, the truth is, one of those things you want to avoid, when using a system, is having duplicate records. You wouldn't want to have duplicate records. And one of those key things that you can always work with, that can always help you, is to search before you create. Now, I want to create this set of ledger accounts. I'm making reference to our class exercise. Our class exercise document is, in a training invite mail that was sent to us, right? You would easily find it there. The state business class accounting class exercise, and you see that the very first set of activities there is creating ledger accounts. And I want to create those ledger accounts here, right? And the very first thing I need to ascertain is, this ledger account I want to create, what's their nature? Expenses, property, plant, and equipment, other current assets. It simply means they can always, work with this part called add an account. So we want to create a ledger account. I'll just need to create, right? And the very first thing I have here is, what is the account name? With the account name is the description now, right? The account name in this case is borrow expenses, right? Just like I have here. So I have just entered my account name as borrow expenses and my category here. So the category is very, very important. And that is why we stated earlier that this is where, this part is the art, of the software. It is this section. Now I want to add borrow expenses. My account type for borrow expenses is called expenses. Right? It will be so wrong of me. Let me zoom my screen. So it will be so wrong of me. It already has predefined category. It will be so wrong of me to recognize this as other income. It will be so, if I do that, it simply means my report, will be in shambles. Right? It won't make any sense. Right? So that is why it is the heart. You need to treat it with some sense of, and if you don't understand this part, can always liaise with someone who has an accounting knowledge, right? But then the system is very much easy to use, such that they already imputed some slight description, of what each category stands for. For instance, what I want to do is this whole expenses is an expenses, right? So, and you see the definition for expenses, it says cost incurred, right? For instance, advertising, rent, stationaries, and so on. So, for even for non-accountants, you can easily relate to this to say, if I'm creating, a ledger account for borrow expenses to accommodate any expenses I incur with respect to this borrow, you understand? Then it simply means the category should be expenses. It should not be revenue or sales. It should not be current assets. It should be expenses. And that is where this ledger chart of account is very, very important. Right? So I've just imputed expenses. That's the only thing I need to do there. Right? Opening balance, I'm not creating the part of opening balance now. So I will leave it as 0. The system specifically has a screen for entering opening balance, which we'll be doing together, right? So what I'm doing now is to create a ledger account, for borrow expenses, which I'm doing now, right? And the next thing is description. This account name is the GL name, GL description. But then this description is also good. You might want to explain further what you want the ledger account to accommodate. Not just for you, but for your other colleagues. For instance, when they come across the ledger account called borrow expenses, they might say, "Oh, why is the need for this? For this ledger?" So you might now say, "Oh, this is created to house, so, or to accommodate expenses incurred on borrow for the year." It's just for you to elaborate yourself further, right? But then it's not compulsory. This description you have beneath here is not compulsory. If you impute something there, it's fine. It's always good too. But it's not compulsory. What is compulsory is the account name and the right category that you must have assigned, the ledger to. So having done this, I would click on save and new. I can either click on save or click on save and new. The difference between save and new is this. If I click on save, the system saves the record and the screen will still maintain the same. Right? But if I click on save rather, the system saves the record and the system goes back to the list of chart of account screen. But if I click on save and it simply means I'm saving that record, but I want the system to go back to a default screen. Simply means I want to create a new information after that, right? So another ledger account I want to create is security of station expenses. Now would enter that, and of course the category would also be expenses just like we have here, right? I want to go much more faster now because of time, right? And if I do that is equal to an expense, I will do, if I do save now, look at how the system reacts. It saves it and close that screen entirely. You can see it go back, to the list of account screen, right? So that is why I was clicking save and new, right? So let's see if there are a couple of questions for me. So I'll take them. Okay. So a couple of questions. Okay, please. I hope you can hear me clearly. I hope I'm audible. Uh, please, I would appreciate your feedback just to be sure that we all are on the same page. Okay, okay. So electricity expense, credit as expenses, save and new. Let's see, my people hear me. Okay, thank you, Agatha. Okay, so then I want to create. I'm making reference to the business class exercise. It's a business cloud, class exercise document. We share this with you too. So the essence of this is after the training session, you are also, eligible to practice and always let us know. When you have challenges, and if you have another device there, you can always be practicing as we proceed. Like we have now. So now expenses, I want to go very fast, save and new, right? Then I equally have another expenses called maintenance and general repairs, right? So maintenance and general repairs, right? And this is expenses, fantastic. I'll click on save and new, that's done. Then the other side of ledger is PPE, right? You can see plant and equipment at cost. The account type is PPE, simply means it's a fixed asset. Full meaning for PPE is property, plant, and equipment, right? So when you see that, it simply means it's a fixed asset. So let's scroll down, right? And so in this case, it's called non-current assets. So we'll just make it non-current assets. You can call it PPE in some cases, but then it's called non-current assets, when it comes to the system. Okay, so we'll create that as non-current assets. We'll do save and new. Accumulated depreciation, plant and machinery, plant and equipment rather. So I would rather, okay, I would rather have this like this. I would rather have this like this. Plant and equipment, accumulated depreciation. Okay, then this is non-current assets. Okay, save and new. I have leasehold property costs. Non-current assets again. Uh, save and new. Right, I want to create leasehold property too. I'm only copying and pasting, right? So I'm only picking, and I'm equally picking the information from this is equally non-current assets, right? So the account category differ. Is very, very important rather. So then the next one is short-term loan is other current liability. So let's create that too. So this is current liability. So current liabilities, of course, save and new. Then we have other current assets for prepaid rent. So now current assets for prepaid rent, right? Then we equally do save and new. Then the next set of ledgers are for banks, bank accounts, bank and cash on hand. So it simply means we won't be using this exact account screen, right? We'll go back one step to list of our accounts, right? And we'll come here to say, oh, we want to create a bank or credit card account. So you can see the screen is a bit different, because the system will treat this as a bank. The reason why we are treating this as a bank is because we want to be able to do bank reconciliation processes, right? At the end, of a period, at the end of an accounting year or at the end of an accounting period, right? So, bank account name, yeah. So we have GT Bank, right? So, credit category, we can add the category, right? Called bank and cash. Your category could just be anything. So you're only creating category, so that when you want to generate report, your report could be, you can easily say, oh, I want my report for this particular uh, period. I want it to be based on this category. So, but we would explain better as we proceed, right? So we are creating a bank, GT Bank, right? Our category is bank. Then the default payment method is electronic fund transfer, which is, we do disburse by EFT. So bank name, GT Bank, right? Account number, you can have it. One, one, one. It can be your normal account number. So then the only thing we have here, opening balance, would also treat that in the later part, right? All we just need to do here is to click on save and new. The essence of doing all of these things is this. In a software, you don't just begin, you don't just start to do transactions. You don't just start to say, oh, I spent this money on this, I bought this on this also period, oh, we sold this set of items to our customers. No, you don't just start like that. When you are setting up a system, you set up your company details, your company information. When you do that, you proceed to your chart of accounts, right? When you do that, you would equally create other informations, like creating your customers, creating your suppliers, creating your items. Remember, it is only records that are being created, that you'll be able to do transactions on. So it's a chain, it's a flow. If you didn't create a customer record, if you did not create a customer record, you won't be able to do transactions on such customers. And any transactions that you didn't do within the system, you won't be able to generate report on them, right? So that's the essence of we going to creating this record, right? So I will just proceed in creating other informations. Zenith Bank, right? Category is bank. One moment. Category is bank. This is equally electronic fund transfer. Yes, bank name. Okay. Okay. Save and new, right? So then creating the last, this is cash in hand, right? Cash in hand. Then the category, of course, is cash. And the default payment method from here is cash. The bank name is still cash in hand. Then we'll do this and we'll do save. Now, what we've done now is we've been able to create, our ledger accounts. We've been able to create our individual ledger accounts, right? And we've been able to work on, the system's chart of accounts. Now, to go one step back, how do you have access or how can you navigate to your chart of account in Sage Business Cloud Accounting? You do that by going to account module. When you go to account module, then you go to list, right? In list, you have what we call list of accounts. So when you click on list of accounts, the system will give you, a list of your ledger accounts that you have here. And you see you can see, you can move to the next page, move to the next page, and you can move to the last page. And you see that all the ledgers that we've created, for instance, this is short-term loan, which is under current liabilities, right? You would equally see that all the banks that we've created, GT Bank, Sterling Bank, Zenith Bank, are equally here, right? And the fixed asset account we created, leasehold properties, leasehold property cost, and accumulated depreciation, are equally here. So this is the chart of account screen, and you can easily modify any record should you want to. So, for instance, if I want to buy this fixed asset furniture and fittings, I just need to click on fixed asset furniture and fittings. You understand? And if I want to modify the description, I'm allowed to do that. The system allows you to do that. So that is basically how you maintain, a chart of account in Sage Business Cloud Accounting System. One thing you should note also is this. For all other accounting systems, right? Normally, this system allows you to delete, a ledger account. But one thing you should note that is applicable in all accounting systems is this: you'd only be allowed to delete a record if that record, if that information does not have any activities at all. What do I mean? This fixed asset furniture and fittings, I will only be able to delete it if I have not posted at all into it, right? But then if you've posted into a ledger account, right, the only option you have, is this. You can always transfer the balance that you have in that ledger into another ledger, which is the very first step. You can transfer it by raising maybe journal entries, right, within the system from a particular account, to the correct account you would want, such balance to reflect in. And you would always be allowed to make the ledger, that ledger you want to close down, inactive. Remember, you won't be allowed to delete it if it has activities, but you are always allowed to make it inactive. And that is how it works on all accounting software or ERP systems too. When a record, be it customer or supplier or a ledger account, have an activities, maybe you've raised an invoice, you've raised the payment, you've raised anything at all, into it, you will not be able to delete, but you can always make that recording active so that the system will prevent you from posting into it subsequently, right? You won't be allowed to delete, but you will be allowed to make it inactive. And if you want to post into it again, all you just need to do is edit that information and check this active box, make it active again, right? That's also one critical information that is applicable on QuickBooks, on Sage, on any other ERP or accounting system whatsoever, right? So, having said that, then we'll proceed to the next thing on the agenda. And what's the next thing? Now we've been able to create our ledger account, right? We need to be able to create what we call, inventory items. Mind you, you see, these inventory items, every organization aside from charting their account would always deal with, you know, goods or service. And this goods or service would always be tagged as inventory. your inventory items, are not just those items you can see physically. No, the way system works is this. Inventory could either be physical, those ones you can see, you can buy or sell, right? And you can count, you can feel, right? And it could also be of service. Most people don't know this when you talk when you talk about accounting systems. This is what we'll be moving into. Mind you, when you are operating, in a business environment, you're either dealing with inventory items. And when you are setting up a system, the way it flows is this. You set up your company information at first. Then the next thing is you set up your general ledger account, which is also most important, right? Then when you do that, you set up, of course, on the inventory items. It could be physical, it could be service, right? If you deal with in a pharmaceutical firm, you need to create all your inventory items that you deal with, so that when you buy, you always record it on your system. And equally, when you sell, you equally record it on your system. If you are a consulting company or you are a service company, if, let's say you have a salon, right? You can always create, hair making, as a service item. And even the nature, the kind of hair that you make, is it braiding, right? Is it Ghana weaving, couple of all these other activities that you carry out, you can always create them, so that you can always know, okay, how much have I made from Ghana weaving this month? If you are into buying and selling, how much have we made from selling of phones? If it is phones, how much have we made from selling Techno phones, Samsung phones, iPhones, and the likes? And this is where creating of inventory items, which we are into now. This is where it surfaces, right? And just to be sure, I don't. Okay. Uh, Okay, so there is a question from Victor saying, what happens if you choose EFT and cash is being deposited into the bank? It will still work, right? It will still work. So it's just the system is just a way of you you know telling the system that, oh, normally, the way I move funds from this account is through electronic fund transfer. But if cash is being deposited, it's still the same, treatment. When, a customer pays you, or when you are transferring money from one bank into that bank, it's still the same thing. Even if you go to the bank. So that EFT or credit card, doesn't really affect anything anyways. It doesn't really affect anything. So it's just like you keeping, additional information as regards that particular cash or bank, ledger, right? And you talk. The next question is how we can make erroneous invoices inactive. Yes. So yes, you can always. One moment. So what you can always do is this. You can always what you can make inactive are records, customers records, suppliers records, items in the system, general ledger accounts. The only thing you can do for you are allowed, to either void an invoice. Such invoice, you are allowed to either void it, right? And you are equally allowed to create, a reversal document called credit note. We'll be walking us through that, right? We'll be walking us through that, in the later part as we proceed now, right? But then, what we want to move into now is, how do we manage inventory items within the system called Sage Business Cloud Accounting Software? And this same way is similar to other systems like QuickBooks and Sage 50, Sage 50C, as the case may be, right? Now, inventory items. It is expected that even before you create your customers and suppliers, you need to create the services. You need to create the items that you deal, with, right? And to do that, you would always need to do that from the items module. Remember, the items module is responsible for inventory related records. If you are selling a new set of product tomorrow, you need to go to your items module and create it, right? So how do we create it? How do we manage inventory on this system? It's very simple. We go to items module and we go to list. This brings me to this. Now, there is something that is very much peculiar to couple of these softwares, to couple of these modules, right? And it's also applicable in other softwares as well. You notice if I navigate to my customer module, my suppliers module, and my items module, you would have one thing called, let me zoom in a bit. So you have lists, transactions, and you have reports. If I go to my supplier, so I have list, transactions, I have reports. Same thing, in my item, list, transactions, and equally I have reports, right? Why is this? It's a flow of how an accounting system works, right? So remember, before you are able to transact on an item, you need to have created, the item or the customer or the supplier. We call it master file records. So, and you need to have created it on that list. In set 50, it's being called maintain, right? Task and reports. In Sage 50, in Sage Business Cloud Accounting, it's been called list, transactions, and reports. In Sage 200 Evolution, it's called maintenance, transactions, we have inquiries, and we have reports. But note, this is how it works. For you to create a record, you need to go to list to be able to add that record. Anything you are doing on that list is either to add a record or to edit a record, or in some cases to delete a record, right? But then you would only be allowed to raise transactions on records that you must have created. If I did not create Aziz as a customer in my system, there's no way I will be able to generate an invoice or a credit note for Aziz, right? It's a chain. And likewise, if I'm unable to do a transaction on Aziz, I would be unable to generate reports. So you would only be able to do transactions on records that you've added, right? And when you do transactions, you would only be able to generate reports on activities that you must have record as transactions. So that is why you have list, transactions, and report. So to create a record, you need to go to list. To do a transaction, you go to transactions. And when you want to generate report, you go to reports. So in this case of item, now if I want to create a new item, you know, it's a no-brainer. I should know that for me to do that, I need to go to items. Under items, I need to go to list, right? And I have list of items, right? But if I want to do a transaction related, I need to go to transactions, right? So that is how it works, right? In here. And that is how it works across all softwares, right? So now, for us to create inventory items, we go to list of items, right? And we can go ahead in creating our items. But one thing we should note is this. Before we create our items, we have what we call item categories. Item categories is just like we grouping this set of items, right? And, as a system person, you need to group or categorize, your records properly. If you categorize it properly, you'll be able to generate proper and meaningful reports from the system, right? Now, I have items here. I have items that are service in nature, and I have items that are physical in nature, right? So the case study being used in here is that uh, this is the firm that we are using for our training here, right? They deal in is a fishery firm. They deal with in prawns, crocodile, crabs, catfishes, and all that. And they equally render storage services, and they sell ice blocks as well, right, to customers. And that is why you will see that our set of item categories, or our set of items, is in line, with this. And our category two, we've said, okay, it's a seafood company, so let's categorize our items into those that belong to storage services and those ones that are seafood in nature. So when we are generating reports, we can see how much we've made from seafood, and we can see how much we've made from storage services. We can see our profit for the period, and the likes, right? And that's the purpose of doing this. So before we create, individual inventory items, let's make provision for what we call categories first, right? And to create categories, we go to items list, we go to item categories, right? Categories is for us to say that when we are generating our reports, we can always generate them in line with categories. Categories give us proper insights. For instance, if you sell phone and laptops, you could equally create categories to say, oh, I want to create a category for Techno, Samsung, iPhone. So it simply means when I'm creating individual item called iPhone 14 Pro, right, I can link it to a category called iPhone. And when I'm creating, a phone under Samsung, I can link it to a category called Samsung. So that at the end of a certain day or a certain month in time or a certain end of the year, I can say how much have I made if I'm generating my income statement or if I'm generating my sales report. I can say I just want to generate this report based on a particular category. And what will be my category? I can say a category for iPhone, and the system will give me all those products I've sold under iPhone. Right? That's the essence of category. Right? And that is why we'll be creating a category here before we create individual, inventory item. So we've been told to create categories for storage and for seafood. So I will create storage services and do save and new. Now we equally create seafood, right, here, and do save and new, right? So I've been able to do that, at that end. Right? The next thing for me to do is to create, items. But I don't just also want to create items, right? I want to create items, and I want to be able to categorize my items properly to say that when I raise invoices on my items, when I sell prawns as an item, I want to be able to define a ledger account I want that revenue to report to. You don't understand how it works as we proceed, right? But then let me easily create, an item account, for this set of category also. I've created a category, but I want to create an item account, right? And my item account, I want to create an item account for storage services, right? You will see the purpose of uh the item account now. So storage services. Okay, even before storage services, the sales storage services. Okay, revenue, right? I equally want to create, a cost of sales ledger purchases. So I want to do for seafood too. So sales seafood as sales. And I want to do, of course, cost of sales for seafood. You know, you see how this works now. Now we've created a ledger account for them, and we've created, of course, a category for them. Let's now create the account, the item itself. Now remember I stated something. I said before you create a new record, always search, right? So for instance, I want to create storage services. If I come here and I search for storage services, simply means there is no record to be found. I don't have storage services created before. Now I'm on a good note to do add an account. Now I'm creating, an inventory account in here. And the very first thing I have here is what is my inventory code? So my inventory code is item 001, right? And it could be anything at all. In your own case, it could be seafood 01. It could be anything. But for the purpose of this training exercise, we are letting it be item 001. So storage services is the description, right? And the category here, remember, we've created a category for seafood and storage services. So the question is, what category does it belong to here? It belongs to storage services category. I already explained what category means, right? The essence of category is that anything that we are creating, any item, be it physical or service in nature, that we are creating, and it has to do with storage services, we'll be able to link it to storage services as a category. But then, these storage services we have here, what's the item type? It is service in nature. Now, we render storage services for clients, right? Simply means our customers could come and say, "Oh, we want you to want to store this in your cold room, right? We want you to store this set of items in your cold room for us." So it's a storage service that we are rendering, but then it's service in nature. Do you understand? That is why this item type you have here, it could either be physical or it could be service, right? The difference between these two is that when you select physical, it simply means when you are transacting, the system, would always consider quantities, right? If I say this item is physical in nature, when I buy it, the system would recognize to say, "Oh, I bought 5 quantities of this item." And I can always generate my quantity on hand report at any point in time, right? And equally, when I sell, I'll be able to generate movement report, on this item. But then if I select service, you see that this quantity I have here, the moment I change this to service, will be eradicated. This opening cost and opening quantity column. If I select service, right, you see that the quantity column is being eradicated, right? Because this is a service, storage service. We cannot count it, we cannot feel it, we cannot touch it. Do you understand? So that is why it's a service, right? And the only thing you also need to do here is this item account, right? If I choose not to do anything further here and I click on save, simply means I've been able to create this storage service as a service item, right? But then I as I want my accounting information or my financial, my business information to make more sense to me at the end of the day. So I want to say that whenever I'm selling or whenever I'm invoicing customers, on these storage services, I want my system, to always recognize it, in this ledger account called sales for storage services. That was the reason why I went ahead to create a ledger account, as an item account. And the same way is this. You can create different ledger accounts, like a typical example of a phone, a gadget selling company. So to say, whenever I sell, techno phones, report into my sales ledger for techno, so that when I'm generating my income statement, I can see the amount, the amount of the contribution amount, that techno is contributing, to the profit of the business. I can see the amount, that iPhone is generating for me. So, but if I just leave this to sales, right, it simply means any item I sell or any service I sell, I would just see it in my sales ledger. But they won't differentiate it, and I don't want that. So I want individual set of items to report differently. And that is how, you differentiate a digital accountant or a digital business person to someone who is still, accustomed, to a manual process. So my sales, my cost of sales. So when I sell and when I invoice, when I invoice and when I'm being invoiced on these particular, activities, I want it to go to my ledger account for storage services. So, and I will click on save and new, right? I will click on save and new. Then I'll proceed in creating orders. So let's see, uh, if we are good, as we speak, if there are no much questions for me. Okay. Yes, for service item, opening balances will not be applicable. Of course, something you can't count. So there is no, you can't have opening balances for it. So you would only have opening balances for items that you are able to count. And majorly opening balances for items would only be attributed to physical, inventory items. So that is just to answer your question there. So let me quickly create all other, items, funds, and the likes, right? Okay, funds, and the category, of course, is seafood. So prawns, it's a physical item. It's an item we can see and we can count, you know. So that's selecting that physical items. Okay. So do we have selling price for it? We don't have selling price, but if we do, we can always impute. So we don't want to treat opening balance at this stage, just like I said. Then of course, remember, what's the unit of measure? Unit of measure is, should be kg. I guess should be kg. Okay, is units rather. We have units here. So our unit of measure is units. So if it is kg, you input kg. If it is pack, you input pack here. It's just the unit of measure that you buy and sell. So, but then when we sell, we want it to go to, of course, seafood, revenue for seafood and cost of sales for seafood. And yes, we always recognize VAT, 7.5% on it, which is nice, right? So we do this and we click on save and new. So we quickly create other items, right? We move to Coca, item 3. Okay, the code. So the code must be uniform. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And it goes on and on and on, right? Coca is also a physical item belonging to seafood. So this is equally units, right? And this will go to seafood, and we do save and new. Then we have crabs, course, sorry, crabs here. Then the code as this. So the category is equally belonging to seafood. Then here, my revenue account that I want, it to always report to should be revenue for seafood and cost of sales for such. So catfish is the next item here. I'm only copying and pasting from our class exercise that we have, that we've shared with us. So this is equally belonging to seafood. I'm only moving very fast because of course, time, because our time is fast spent. Then 6 lobsters, right? Lobsters category, seafood. Okay, sorry. Now then. Okay, units. This is units. Then we have ice block as the final item. Is equally physical, is under storage services this time around. So storage, like we have here, right? So I will come here and I will do save. So we've been able to create our inventory items, right, in the system. And remember, inventory items will be treated, from the items module, right? So, and also items could be of two nature. Could either be physical, and it could also be, service. So either of the two, and we've explained to us the difference between these two, right? And also we've showed us how we can always, differentiate them at the point of creating an item. And should you have created an item wrongly, you are also allowed to edit such an item by clicking on that item, and putting in place the needful, of course, information. Okay. So now we've created the set of items that, okay. So yes, a question from a pair: that is the VAT separate from price, or is it marked up? Yes. Okay, beautiful question there. So in some cases is marked up, right? And in some cases is different. So it depends. Different organizations, right, would say, oh, these are price, oh, is exclusive of VAT. It simply means after this price, we are expected to charge a 7.5%, on it, before we now arrive at, the total, price for that item. And in some systems, in some organization, they will tell you that this price, oh, we already marked up, we already included VAT elements in it. Do you understand? So that would, by the time we get to the transaction proper, we have what we call VAT inclusive prices and VAT exclusive prices. So we'll see how it's been done and the difference between these two, right? But you can have either scenarios. So it depends on your organization, and their policy that they have in place. So if you look at your product, if you say, oh, this product are already factored in VAT, simply means, from that item that you sold, you need to, a portion of it would go to FIRS, as VAT for that period. But if you are saying, oh, this is my price, oh, my customer should always note that we will still charge VAT on it. And we want it to be clear that this is the amount we are selling, but this is then the VAT on it. This is the amount you then need to pay us. Do you get it? It's very much applicable, right? And I will look at that as we also proceed. Now, this will lead us to the last set of two activities that we'll be doing here with respect to master record, and which is suppliers and customers. Now we've been able to create our items and the services that we render, but then we don't just render them to ourselves, right? So before we are even able to sell items, before we make use of the system to generate transactions, right, and generate reports, then we need to make provision for our suppliers. Before you sell an item, you must have bought, right? And that is why supplier would actually be the next thing to treat, within the system. And you are already aware that for you to be able to create a supplier in the system, you need to go to the suppliers module, because that is the module that is absolutely responsible for such. So if I go to my suppliers module and I go to list of suppliers, the system will avail me the list of my suppliers if I had entered any supplier at all. But then this is a fresh system that we are just setting up ourselves. So we are expected to create suppliers in the system, right? But before you create suppliers, you need to create something, and it's called suppliers category. Note, all informations you have in your system with respect to master records should be properly categorized. Most trainers won't tell you this. They'll just tell you create a supplier, blah, 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 and you are done. No, you need to properly classify. A proper classification will lead to a proper and meaningful report. That is what will separate you from those that are manual accountants, or those that have even attended, accounting training, accounting software training, and, and did not really make, a good use of it. So we need to create what we call suppliers category. So your supplier category could be anything, but there are some set of supplier category that is very, very fundamental across all business sectors, right? And they are actually two in nature, right? So when you are creating a supplier, right, so you would either be able to ascertain, you should be able to ascertain to say, this supplier, are they, our trade creditor, right? Or are they a sundry, credit or vendor to us? Those are the two primary set of categories that you have for suppliers. It's either a supplier, it's a trade creditor, or you call them trade payable for you, or they are sundry creditors. There is actually a difference between these two, right? The difference between these two categories is this: a trade creditor supplier, these are your normal supplier. Your normal supplier that supply you those items that you sell. Now, any item or any service that I deal with that I use in generating revenue, into the system, right? If let's say I sell phone, so any vendor that I have that supplies me this set of phones, right, is actually a trade creditor to me. There are suppliers that supply me, those set of items that I sell, or those set of activities that I engage in day to day, to be able for me to be able to generate, inflow, or for me to be able to generate revenue. They are very, very important to us. They are our supply chain. So we refer them to as, trade creditors. So when you are using a system, you need to make provision for a category, so that at the end of the day, you know the amount you are owing your trade creditors, and the amount you are owing, your sundry creditors. So I will create a category called trade creditors, and I will create another category called sundry creditors. So I explained what a trade creditor is in the other time. Now, what is a sundry creditor? Our sundry creditors are also those vendors, those suppliers that also render services to us, or they supply us stuff. But what they supply us are not what we directly sell. We don't sell those set of items or those set of services directly. Now, a typical example is this. We have a supplier that just supplies us, stationaries, right? And this set of stationaries, we don't sell them. We only use them for internal usage. So they sell to us paper, they sell to us, inks, printer inks. They even sell to us laptops. So if this set of equipment uh, or this set of items or service are not those that we deal with, then we get them to our sundry creditors. If we have a vendor that helps us, in cleaning services, those are our sundry creditors. So that is why before you create a supplier in the system, you need to create a category, right? And your category could even go further than that. Your category could be, these sundry creditors that service you, that supplies phone. You could say phone sundry credit or sundry creditors dash phone. So that you can easily know the balances you are owing those suppliers that supplies you phones, those suppliers, that supplies you maybe laptops, and the likes. That is the essence of suppliers category. So now you've created suppliers category. You are now on a good note to create your suppliers, right? You need to note these things because these are what makes you a very, good user of a system. So it differentiates you from every other person that is just using the system to just raise invoices and the likes. They don't know how to generate or how to generate meaningful reports, that they can use to make, solid decisions at the end of the day. So I hope we are together, right? So yes, you can go ahead, Shinedu. So I hope we are attentive, right? So if you have questions, we can still further hacks, right? So now we are done with creating, our suppliers category. Let's now create our suppliers. Now our suppliers would also be falling into these two categories, right? Firstly, we have Greenwell Nigeria Limited. So we would copy and paste Greenwell Nigeria Limited in here, of course. Then Greenwell Nigeria Limited belongs to which of the category, right? We want to assume it belongs to trade creditors, So we'll do that, trade creditors, and we have their uh, suppliers address here. So it's always good you update, your information, your information within the system as much as you can, right? So now I'll be copying this supplier's email here, right? And this phone number, this is a manufactured phone number, anyways. We only came up with the phone numbers. Okay. So in your telephone, you would input, right? And you can always copy address from postal information. So you can say this is in Lagos, of course, Nigeria, right? Copy from postal address, right? So this is being done already. So when you are creating your suppliers, always add as many information as you can. The system allows you to add their address, their phone number, their contact email. Even if you have additional contacts in that, suppliers end, you have a couple of their sales rep number or anything, their CFO's number, add it because you can equally add their bank details. The system is not just for you to just do transactions alone. Should you need any information, instead of calling them all over, you are calling them 5 times, 10 times, you can always navigate to your software and you have the information there. So it's always important to update this information with your suppliers, information. Update it. The more information you have, the best it is for you when using a software. So you will do that and you click on save and new. So that would give me a good leverage point to create for other suppliers uh, information. So I want to tag this to be sundry creditors purposely, right? Okay, because I just want to classify, this so that when we go to report, you see how meaningful, how useful categories can be. So I will equally copy this, right? Okay. Supplier email. This as email. Supplier's phone number. Okay. Done that. Copy address from here. Save and new quickly. Create Wado Nigeria Limited. Going fast because of time so that we can easily release us. So sundry creditors. I know. Okay, let me make this 3 creditors. Okay, then this address, right? Let me just copy this address here. Email and phone number. Okay, because of time, let me just update it with their phone number. Okay, or better still, let's do email too. Okay, on that. So save and new again. Let's create for the last supplier. Okay, this address. Okay, so the category, let it be sundry on purpose. Address is here. Copy postal address, the email, phone number here. Oh, okay. So then with this, I can save and new. Then of course, if I go back to my suppliers list of suppliers, then we will see our list of suppliers that we've created. These are our vendors. Remember, some of them are sundry and some of them are trade creditors. So we've explained to us what the difference is, you know, and that will just lead us to the last, part here, which is creating our customers. So the idea is we want to be able to set up our company in line with our company information, in line with our general ledger accounts, inventory items, suppliers information, customers information. Then we will now be on a good note to now do transactions. We look at scenarios. We look at we raising. When do you raise quotes? When do you raise invoices? When do you raise expenses within the system? How do you go about it? When do you raise credit notes? There are typical instances where you need to raise credit notes. When you raise purchase orders, what happened within accounting and ERP systems? So, those scenarios, we would also be looking at them, in the transaction part. But remember, I said something, you would only be able to do transactions when you must have created your records. And that is why we are taking our time, to go through explaining some of these things to us and equally showing us how it's been done from the software itself, right? So now the next thing we want to look at is, yes, we've created items, we've created suppliers that we do buy from. We won't sell these items to ourselves if we bought it at if we bought these items at a certain times, right? So we need to be able to create customers. So our customers could be in any nature. They could be working customers, they could be corporate customers, they could be individuals, and it goes on and on, right? So now we want to create customers within the system, right? After which, we'll take questions, then we'll just call it a day. Then we'll continue tomorrow, right? Now we want to be able to create customers, right? So for customers, I go to my customers module, of course, go to my list of customers. But before I do that, right, remember there's always need to categorize your records, right? That will lead us to we creating customers category, right? Then we will come back here. Similarly to suppliers, we would also create categories. Now, customers categories is also in line with that of suppliers. It could be in any mode, right? But then primarily, right, we could look at we creating, our trade debtors and our sundry debtors too, and categories also could be with respect to region, with respect to location. You can create categories and just say Lagos, Abuja, so that customers that are in Lagos, you can link them to Lagos categories and the likes. And you can equally say, oh, your customer categories, you want to link them with respect to maybe those that are corporate or those that are individuals. You can equally create categories for your customers, those ones that are wholesale and those ones that are retail. Depends on how you want to go about it. Depends on how much insight you want to see with respect to your receivables or with respect to your sales. So, but for the purpose of this training, I will just create two categories called trade debtors, all right? And I will do save as new. And I will create another one called sundry debtors. Okay. And I will do save. Yeah. One moment. So, audible. Okay. So I hope you can hear me clearly, and I hope you can see my screen. Okay. So we've created customers category. Let's quickly create customers without wasting much of our time. Create customers. So similarly, Bakers Nigeria Limited. Okay. Customer. Okay. This is coming up. Okay. Click on add a customer to create your customer. Your customers could be created, at customers that you'll be able to do transactions and generate reports on. Okay. Okay, one moment. And sort my okay. So I hope you can still see my screen. So creating customer, which customer category does Bakers Nigeria Limited belongs to? Pay debtor, right? Okay, so going back to my class exercise, this is their address, postal address, same thing. I want to copy into delivery address what I have in postal address. That's the essence of clicking copy from postal address. Then the next thing is the customer's email. And the customer's phone number. Do that. Distribution, print, and email. Always important. Mind you, you need to note something here. Now, if your statement distribution here is on email or it has anything that has to do with email, then it simply means you need to provide for the email for that customer. But if the customer does not have any email, the customer you are creating, just set it to print, right? Set it to print. But in this case, the customer has email, so I'll be able to selecting print and email. And remember, I talked about customer zone at first, right? And customer, always know that customer zone only works for customers that you must have added their emails here, right? That you must have added their emails here. So you will do that, and you do save and new. You want to create another customer. So create another customer here. Let's call this sundry, right? Let's input, the office address, okay, their email and phone number. So this, I want to set this to print an email on purpose too, right? So save and new. The next one, West Atlantic. Okay. This is coming up. West Atlantic. The category, this is trade debtors. Okay. So back here, this is the address. Okay. This is their email, their phone number. So for the remaining two, I will just easily, okay, so progress limited, so fast, let this be sundry. So remember, we so when working with this system, always ensure you avoid double spacing. So let me do this. So now we are done, of course, creating our customers. So it simply means now we now have a system, right? We now have a system that has meaningful records that we can always do transactions on, right? And just a brief recap on what we've done so far. So is the software an offline user? I mean, in time of, I don't understand what you mean by is the software an offline user by Damila, but it simply means you can always, the software is a cloud solution. Of course, everyone has their individual logins, so you can always, and if you are inactive within the system for say a couple of minutes, the system logs you out, automatically as a form of security. Which means you need to log in back. You need to log in again when you come back, to the system. All right. So now, just a brief recap of what we've done so far. Remember, what we've done so far is to set up our company. We are not just setting up our company, but also to understand what are those things that are needed. The effect of a couple of these setups that we are doing. And we started, of course, by introducing us to the major difference between what an accounting system and what an ERP system is, right? Because you are expected, for someone who has attended, any of our training, we would always spell it out, to differentiate what an accounting software is and what an ERP system is at large, right? We explained that an accounting software only does, the core functions of the accounting department, raising of invoices, posting of expenses, and the likes, generating basic reports. That's what an accounting system is. But then, and it will do a little bit of inventory, of course. But then an ERP system is very, very robust. It's called enterprise resource planning. It manages, your inventory, fully, manages your finances, fully. It manages HR and payroll, procurement, logistics, supply chain, and couple of all of this. So you see everybody, have their own input just in one application. And it's very, very expensive, talking about ERP systems, and it's being used by big and large organizations. But then accounting software on the other hand, is very, very cost effective, right? And an organization could always start from using an accounting software, and the more you grow, then you migrate into using an ERP solution. You know, and an accounting software is majorly limited in scope, but an ERP solution is very, very vast, in scope. We explained that, and we looked at a couple of examples of these accounting and ERP systems, right? Then we looked at setting up our own company, which we did together by navigating to the company settings. So from the company settings, we were able to set up, proper information with respect to our company. The company's name and address, the company's VAT information, the company's reporting currency. We were able to do that. And we explained to us in detail what a financial year is, right? And how to manage a financial year. We explained what a lockdown date is, and we also showed us, how VAT works in Nigeria, and the VAT, how to set up VAT, in this application, right? We equally looked at how we can add our own logo, right, into the application, because you don't, when you generate, and your logo could be anything for the purpose of training anyways. We looked at this, and we looked at how we can chart our accounts. We looked at what a general ledger account is, what a general ledger chart of account is, right? We looked at what general ledger is, and we looked at a chart of accounts in its holistic view. We looked at types of ledger account that we have. We looked at how we can properly chart an account, and the steps that we need to go to in charting an account, right? So we after that, we looked at creating, of course, our ledger accounts, which we worked through together, right? From the account module, of course, we created our respective banks also from the account module, which could equally be created from the banking module. We created our set of items in line with their categories. We mapped them, here together, and we equally moved to our suppliers, because when you have an item created, be it physical or service, then you would need to have suppliers in your system, because these items would be supplied by suppliers, right? And also, when, let's now say that we've been able to add suppliers, and suppliers have been able to supply these items, we would also have customers that we will be selling to, these activities, this physical product, or these service, activities, for us to recognize revenue, right? And all of this, that briefed us on, would lead us to the transaction proper of using an accounting system. We would have just gone through, how to do transactions easily, but then we needed to explain to us, we needed to walk us through together. So we look at it from the basis, up to the final point, right? So tomorrow we'll be treating opening balances, right? We'll be treating opening balances. Then we'll be treating customers related transactions, supplier related transactions, and inventory related transactions. So we'll be looking at in what scenario, should a purchase order be raised? What does supplier invoices entail? How do you go about it? When should you raise a supplier's returns? What are those scenarios that would warrant such, right? Then how does the system treat supplier payments? So what do we mean by allocation of payment? You understand? What do we mean by suppliers adjustment? How does it work? In what cases should we need to do that? These are also some of those things we'll be looking at, in the next lecture. Same thing, with respect to customers, right? How do we manage our customers' activities? What is a quote? When we raise a quote, what happens in the system? When we raise an invoice, what is expected, to happen? What do we refer to as recurring invoices? What's a credit note? What do we mean by customer write-offs? Customers adjustments, and a couple of other things. We would also, with respect to inventory now, We'll be looking at how do we reconcile in our inventory ledgers. Inventory, for some of us that manage inventory, items, how does it work within a software? Right? What are those meaningful reports we need to generate? When we say we keep hearing audit, 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 that a company wants to undergo audit, what are those reports that is necessary for you to generate within the system for your audit purposes? What do you need to look out for within your system? How should you go about bank reconciliation, right? As an accountant or as a business owner, how do you reconcile even your ledgers to be sure that what you have in your system is actually true and fair, right? When you have gone wrong, how do you correct? How do you correct errors in accounting systems, or in ERPs? So these are what we'll be looking into, and meaningful reports. We'll be working ourselves through these reports also together, right? This, set of activities will be looked at into later parts, of course, of tomorrow's lecture. But then, if you have any question whatsoever with respect to today's lecture, you can always, drop it here, or feel free to drop it on the group chat also, and you can equally drop it, via WhatsApp to our DM, right? uh, yes, you would have, yes, there is provision for certificate, of course. After the training, there is provision for certificate. And a question by Abraham, that how can you access a business cloud accounting? Yes, to access a business cloud accounting, you need to go to the URL called accounting dot sage one dot co dot za dot co dot za, right? Accounting dot sage one dot co dot za. So it takes you to a landing page, right? It takes you to a landing page where you need to enter your username and password, right? This system allows us, this system gives us, the flexibility for a demo period for 30 days, right? But then, how can we use, our application much more beyond that 30 days, and if we don't want to pay as we speak, because it's a paid for application. So how are we able to use our application much more longer than 30 days? We'll be showing us that also, in our tomorrow's class, right? But then, to access Sage Business Cloud accounting software, you need to launch your browser, be either from your phone or from any system whatsoever. Go to accounting.sage1.co.za, and it takes you to your login page where you input your username and password. All right. Yes, there will be certificates, and yes, you will definitely get a recording of the training. Let me sincerely apologize for a couple of challenges that we had at the initial stage. I think it has to do with one of the service provider. So one of the network service providers network that was not stable. So not only on our part, also on participants' end. So we are so sorry for that. We sincerely apologize, and tomorrow promises to be much more better, right? So if there are any questions, you can still drop for us. And in the meantime, also, so I'd like to share with us, that our firm, which is, of course, Droidedge Consulting, we are a business management solution, company, right? We configure, we do a couple of trainings, both individual and corporate trainings. So trying to share with us, uh, one moment. So we do corporate and individual, you know, trainings. We do trainings on Microsoft Excel as well. We do on QuickBooks and a couple of other, system applications. And we configure also, we configure Zoho applications, we configure Sage, systems, both accounting softwares and up to ERP levels, right? So one moment before we call it, you know, a day. Okay, so I have it. Okay, So yeah. So we have, of course, our training manual which we've shared with us. If you check your training invite email, you would find it is attached in the email, the training manual and the class exercise, right? And if you are here to get yours, you can always please feel free to reach out to us, right? So our company, we actually, is a team of seasoned and independent, a team of consultants, and we provide seamless business management solutions. And we also, do customizations, training, and support for clients. So we help you configure systems. So if you have any business at all, any company, and you have any application that you think your company is underutilizing, so we can always help you, improve on it. We can consult for you, improve on it, and also further train you, because what you see out these days is that, so many individuals don't configure software, they're not well enough. So this is something that we got, in-depthly from our firm. So we do sales of business management solutions, just like I said. We implement these solutions and we train and support on it. Right? If you have any application at all and you have any challenges, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be so willing to help, right? And of course, some of our products that we support, Stage 3 Enterprise Management, Stage 300C, Stage 200 Evolution, Stage 300 People, which is a full-scale HR and payroll solution. Then, of course, Stage Business Cloud Accounting, Stage Business Cloud Payroll. Then we do Zoho softwares, from Zoho Books to Inventory to CRM, which is very, very robust, to Zoho Expense, and, talk about it, QuickBooks, and of course, not limited to Microsoft Dynamics as well. So should you want to reach out to us or contact us, always feel free to reach out to us, with this platform. These are our telephone number, our email, and our website. We just, tomorrow's training promises to be much more interesting and interactive, right? So sorry for any inconvenience, today might have, you might have encountered today too. Tomorrow promises to be much more, amazing. So if there are any questions, we'll be looking forward to getting our feedback also. Then you'll be getting the video as well. Of course, definitely we'll be sharing today's video with you, right? We'll upload now and share it with you before the day runs out, right? In preparation for tomorrow's class as well. So yes, there's also provision for certificates, right? But we look forward to, you also practicing on these softwares, and please feel free to reach out. Feel free to reach out. Any question whatsoever, please, you paid for it, so you are entitled to these clarifications. So please reach out to us. We'll be so willing, to assist, right, in any areas that we can. So thank you so much. Thank you for trusting in us. And tomorrow's session promises to be much more fantastic. So, uh, okay, yes. For if yes, you cannot actually enroll as an individual, just like I said at the start of the training. So I said you can, the company name there, you can always, you can input your name at, your name limited, as this, anything at all. You can be imaginary about it, so it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. So you can use your individual name to sign up for the application. And if you want to modify your company name, just like we did together in the training, can do that from the company settings, right? And Abraham also asked that as an employee in a company using Sage account, how can, as a new employee in a company using Sage? Yes, it's very, very easy to cope, and that is why tomorrow's class is very, very important, because these softwares, work alike to a large extent. you know they work alike. It's only few things that differs from them. So now, if you understand the process of, record maintenance, which is how we've added records today, right, up to the process of what was it called, up to the process of transactions and up to the process of interpreting reports from this training section. Then be rest assured that if you are working with any accounting software, to a large extent, you have ideas. You know how it's going to work. The only thing that one of those things that differ is, here, if you want to raise invoices, you can raise invoices from customers module. But in another system, their invoices could be raised from inventory module, right? But when you understand the nature of invoice, maybe the only question you just need to ask is on which of the module, because also business processes also differ. On which of the module do you raise invoice? And the moment you see it, you know what you need to look out for. You know how dates could be important. You know how customers could be important. And let's say you want to raise an invoice, you are not seeing the customer, then you should know that the next thing to do is to go and create such customer. So it makes you a user that's using the system. So that's just a basic answer to your question there. So it's very, very much easier, right, to use. So let me. It is on this note that I would like to, put today's class to an end. And please, 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 let's endeavor to join for tomorrow's session. And tomorrow's session promises to be much more interesting. And we hope to see you tomorrow. All right. Thank you.